Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to FGCU. How's everybody doing? Good to see so many friendly faces. My name is Justin Fitzgerald. I serve as Director of Community Engagement here at FGCU over our Office for Service Learning and Civic Engagement. But you all know that because you've gotten a ton of emails from me and from our office. But thank you for coming. So quick logistics. There are, at any point, feel free to grab some breakfasty snacks and drinks in the back. Around 11:45, we'll have some lunch and some mix and mingle time. Just out the doors, you probably saw as you came up the stairs, right? If you would not have come straight as you came up those stairs and you would have turned around, the restrooms are right there, so you can go back in the door and use the restroom. And we'll be just kind of cranking along over the next hour and a half or 2 hours. Feel free to use the restroom, to grab more snacks, to ask questions throughout. You're not going to at all offend me if you ask a question throughout. So this time is your time. This is all about helping you as community partners, so we call you co-educators, to learn how best to partner with FGCU and how best to partner with our students, our faculty, and our staff. And we'll talk about each of those populations separately. But we want you to really figure out what is best for your organization right now, what's best for your organization maybe a couple months or a year from now, and maybe even 5 years down the road. Raise your hand if you are a partner who has been with us and working with us. Your agency, your organization has been partnering with us for over a year. And drop your hand if you are new to that organization. So your hand would stay up if your agency has been here and you have been here. What we saw a lot of, we had about 80 people, 80 individuals register for today, saying that they are either new to the organization or their organization is new. And so for many people in this room, it may be first-time information. That's great. Other people in this room have been with us for a while. They know the routine. And even for you, if that's your case, we have some new information. We have some reminders for you. But one of the reasons that we don't specifically do a new organization workshop separate from a veteran or returning organization workshop is that you learn from each other. And so we want this to also be an open conversation. If you're online, feel free to put things in the chat. I know we had about 18 people who registered saying they were coming via Zoom. If you are online, we're going to talk about the agenda that you received. But if you're online, at the top of that agenda that was emailed to you is a link to go ahead and check in electronically. Everyone in the room checked in at the front table so that we can follow up with you and know that you did come. This agenda, this little outline of what we're going to be going over is something I want to point out the features of this. It's interactive. And so there's a QR code at the upper left corner. That QR code takes you to an electronic version of this piece of paper. Why that's important is everything in the electronic version is hyperlinked. So in your printed version, you can see certain things are blue, looks like a hyperlink. That is true. When you scan that QR code, it takes you to the electronic version, and then you can save that file or that link and use it over and over and over again throughout the year. So if you're like, oh, he talked about this form that I can use every time I have a need, it's going to be hyperlinked in here. So yes, you got a paper copy when you came in, but the electronic copy is something that we really encourage you to maybe bookmark in your browser or save as a favorite. All right, any questions before we get started? Any immediate questions? Okay, great. Well, thank you again for being here. We have a great team that I'm going to introduce you to here in just a minute. But before we do that, I want you to just understand a little bit about service learning at FGCU. Service learning is a graduation requirement, and we'll talk about why that is. So if that is new information for you, we are very, very, very proud of the fact that we have this graduation requirement because it is a win for you, getting students out into the community and filling real needs, but it's a huge win for our students. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. But it's important to know where we fall. So service learning at some schools falls in this kind of optional bubble at the university where students can engage with it if they want to, If you look at some of the other schools, we actually one of only 2 public institutions in the entire country that have a service learning graduation requirement for all undergraduate students. And we are very proud of that. Some schools have an internship requirement for certain majors. We also have an internship requirement for certain majors, but then there are other majors. You can come here and have some majors that have no internship requirement. Why that matters is what's the #1 thing that employers are looking for? Experience. So service learning is actually the only experience that across the board we know an FGCU grad will have. So that is a huge win for our students, but as I mentioned, it's a huge win for you. So we actually fall in a department that is about academic success. And within academic success, we fall under an umbrella called experiential learning and career development. So Jessica Ray, many of you know her from over the years, or you may have just met her when you checked in. Jessica Ray is our senior director who leads that department for experiential learning and career development. Within that department, there are 3 offices. The first office is Career Development Services, and Rose Fuller is the director over there. And if you ever, this is going to be your office where if you want anything about hiring our students or helping them prepare for jobs, so they do mock interviews, they do career exploration, major exploration. Many of our students come in. You may have walked up the stairs with brand new first-year students. If you got it all lost in the lobby there, you may have ended up in the orientation line. Those are brand new students who are just starting their FGCU experience. And as they walk in, some of them know what they want to study. Others of them say, somebody told me I need to go to college, but I have no idea what I'm doing. Career Development Services helps them explore majors, figure out the logistics of that, of what does this look like to study this, and what am I going to make when I come out, and all of that, but also the passion side of that. And so Career Development Services does far more than just help people create a resume or practice interview skills. They do that, of course, as well. For you all, though, Career Development Services can be a really great place if you are trying to hire. So you've got open positions and we're trying to fill them. It's really great to send an email to careercenter@fgcu.edu, and they can help you get into our system for that, which is Eagle Career Network, and they would tell you all about that. Internships is another, as I mentioned, another way that students get experience, but not all students are required to do internships. The director of our Office for Internships and Cooperative Programs is Ashley Droz. And so if you haven't had a chance to meet her, she can be a really great asset if you're looking for interns. And we'll talk about how internships differ a little bit from service learning. They're different objectives. And I can tell you just the big picture overview is that internships focus on the student learning. So sometimes agencies will call me and say, we are looking for an intern, and we want that intern to do social media. And the question we both ask, whether you call Ashley or myself, is, will that student work under an expert in social media? Someone who has that in their job title and their job function. If the answer is no, the student is not going to work under someone who, maybe you don't have a social media or marketing person at your agency. Then that's going to be a really good service learning experience, because service learning is about the skills that students already have, taking that into the community, or the skills that they are learning in the classroom under a faculty member and taking that into the community. Whereas an internship is about, I'm a student, I'm studying this area, and I need to learn from an expert in the process. So over the next 3 months, I'm going to come in, I'm going to intern in your agency, but I'm going to be directly supervised by someone who knows this field really well. So if you don't have a social media person, you probably want to go the service learning route if you need social media help. If you do have a social media marketing person, that's going to be potentially a really great internship. So these are the 3 offices, so my office being the 3rd, the 3 offices that all fall under experiential learning and career development. And the goal here is really sort of a pipeline to get students experience that helps them determine or confirm their major and their career path quickly, because we want them to know that they don't want to be a kindergarten teacher at their 1st or 2nd year of FGCU, not their senior year when they get into the classroom and they're like, oh, I thought I wanted to be a kindergarten teacher, but it turns out I don't want this life every day. And Works for some people, it doesn't for others. And that's great, but we want them to have those experiences earlier, and service learning can be one of those great wins for them in that sense. So 3 offices that all fall under one umbrella together. Our 3 offices work together all the time. So it's not a big deal if you call me about internships. I'm going to immediately connect you to Ashley and her team, or if you call me about posting a job, we all work together very seamlessly. We will just turn you over or help you get questions answered where you need. So 3 offices, 1 department, and then, like I said, we're all under academic success. I did mention at other universities, service learning does fall into this optional category, like fraternities and sororities. Fraternities and sororities are a really great thing. It's really developmental for students, but you can get your degree without ever touching a fraternity or sorority, without ever joining a fraternity or sorority. At other universities, you can get your degree without ever doing service. You can get your degree without ever going into the community. At FGCU, you cannot get your degree without ever doing service learning or ever, literally, unfortunately, sometimes students don't get their degree if they don't do service learning. Now, we continue to work with them until they do get their degree. But the point is, that's how important it is. FGCU, like many universities, says community engagement matters. We care about the community. And that is the case, but we live it out unlike any other university in the country. I'm going to let that person in because I think Jess had to step aside here. You got it? Thanks, Lisa. All right, so honing in a little bit on our office, again, just for some logistics here, so you know who is who. I serve as the director over the office, but I've got a great team under me. Our coordinator of service learning is Kelly Bernardo. I think many of you may have known Kelly in her previous role in our office as the program assistant. She has jumped up to the coordinator role, and she really focuses on first year, second year, and sometimes third year students, helping them engage in service early, exactly those things I was just mentioning, making sure it's intentional. I tell students all the time, especially during orientation, and especially when we're talking to the family members, because a lot of students will say, I had a volunteer requirement in high school, so this is nothing, I'm just going to redo that. Well, volunteerism is the community engagement kind of lower level. So if you think about it, students do math in high school, but then they're going to do math again in college. Students do history, they take history in high school, they're going to take history again in college, but it's going to be a deeper, more intentional course. They're going to potentially be taking that and honing it in on what they're doing. So if they're a chemistry major, their math is going to be a bit more intense and it's going to connect more to chemistry, so forth. The same is true for community engagement. Community engagement in high school looks like volunteerism. They might be helping to park cars. They might be cleaning out dog kennels. They might be doing any number of needs in the community that are really beneficial, both for them to get out there and understand the world is bigger than themselves, and to that agency. A lot of agencies can't exist without that mass number of high school and college students doing volunteerism. But we don't have a volunteerism requirement. We have a service learning requirement. And so just like math gets more honed in, bless you, just like math gets more honed in and more targeted toward their major, we expect the same from service learning. So yes, a student can absolutely clean out dog kennels for 80 hours and consider their graduation requirement met. That is absolutely not the intent of the service learning requirement. Otherwise, we would call it a volunteerism requirement. It's a service learning requirement because we want it connected for their sake. We want it connected to what they're studying and what they're hoping to do. And so Kelly works with first year, second year, third year students to make as much intentionality out of the requirement as possible. So we want them starting early and we want them connecting the dots. Lisa Page, who you may have met at the check-in table back there, she's our coordinator for student progress. So she helps as sort of a catch-all for our juniors and really our seniors who are trying to graduate but have not met that requirement. And so at that point, unfortunately, it becomes more of a, oh my gosh, we have to help you graduate, instead of a, okay, tell me about what you're wanting to major in. Tell me about where you want to learn and grow and develop. It is a bit of a tricky line to walk, and Lisa does a great job with that. But where you might engage with Lisa is, so where you might engage with Kelly is our events. service learning fairs, our Soaring with Service events out on the lawn if you've been there in the past, our days of service, that's all going to be under Kelly. Where you might engage with Lisa is her calling you about a student who is panicked and trying to graduate, and she's trying to help that student verify hours from 3 years ago that they forgot to track, or just trying to get more information to help that student along and get them to their final degree and their final finish line there. So that's Kelly and Lisa. And then we have just, we're just now bringing on board a brand new program assistant, Rocio Ibanez. She'll be joining us a week from this coming Monday. So two weeks from this past Monday. And we're very excited about that. It's a brand new addition to our office. And so you'll be interacting with her in that way. And then our faculty specialist, Jamie is going to be joining us. I don't see her yet. So you will get a chance to meet Jamie. Jamie is a faculty member. So she's been teaching here for a long time. In fact, fun fact, she graduated from FGCU as the first graduating class from FGCU, and then eventually made her way back here as a faculty member. And now she helps our office, in addition to teaching, she helps our office connect community needs intentionally into a course. So she works primarily with faculty members, and so you won't have a ton of interaction with her unless you tell me, I want to connect with a course and have a relationship with a course where every single semester I work with the same faculty member and we do a similar project each semester. Sometimes that's long-term studies. Sometimes that's maybe an actual event like a health fair or something like that you do every semester. She's going to then work with a faculty member on campus. She's going to help find a faculty member, and then she's going to work with that faculty member to work it into their course. And what we help faculty members understand is sometimes it's a very easy shift for them. They may already have an assignment where we can just add one little layer to it, and all of a sudden it's a really great service learning experience. So for example, think all the way back to, if you went to college, think all the way back to college, who took a public speaking course in college? Pretty much everybody. It's pretty common. In that course, there was probably a time that your professor said, I don't care what you talk about, just come Friday ready to give a 5-minute talk, right? Well, same happens here. And so what we try to help faculty understand is assignments like that can very easily be a service learning project if you phrase it right. So instead of saying, I don't care what you talk about, say, here's a menu of 10 different nonprofit organizations. Pick one that you want to talk about for 5 minutes and why it has a positive impact in the community. Now they spend time researching and preparing their talk and then giving their talk. If we record that talk and we give that to you, you now have a 4 to 5 minute talk that you can use on your website, on your social media, and any other place that you want. The student did service by doing the assignment that they were already going to do. All we did, the faculty didn't have to do more work. The student didn't have to do more work. They just had to target it toward a need in the community. We say that every assignment at FGCU can be a service learning opportunity if the faculty phrases it right or the student chooses to do it in a way that fills a need in the community. And so that's part of what Jamie helps all faculty understand. It's a big job. She's just come on in this role. It's a new role for us in the spring. So we're still kind of working out some of the kinks of what that looks like. We have, each of the colleges that we have here in our university, we have different connections with each of those colleges. And so Jamie looks also at which colleges aren't doing a lot in the community and how do we increase that. So I won't name any colleges, I won't call any out, but there are some colleges that certainly do a lot more service in the community than others. And sometimes it's just a matter of helping those faculty members in those colleges understand things like this, like how can I take an economics assignment and make that a service learning opportunity? And so Jamie's working on the faculty side of that, whereas I'm working with each of you to help you understand, hey, this faculty member teaches a course on microeconomics, and one of the assignments is this. I think it could serve you in this way. And so what I love about that piece of it is watching the light bulbs go off in each of you when I bring those opportunities and you're like, oh, I never thought about that. I thought about parking cars, but I didn't think about that. And so it's really just a great experience all the way around. So we have a fantastic team. We also have a student team. We have about 5 or 6 students that do any number of things for us. One of those roles in our office is actually our weekly guided trips. Has anybody, any organization in here had our weekly guided trips come out to you? I don't see any of the faces that we have come out to before, but 2 to 4 times a week, we have students that are paid by our office that help other students meet up who are unpaid. So they're coming out to do service learning together. And they will come to you, and we'll set those up ahead of time. And it's a way for students to come out and serve in a place that they may have never gone before, but they don't have to go by themselves. So sometimes first-year students or transfer students, they're brand new to the area, or they're juniors or seniors and they just don't feel comfortable going somewhere all by themselves. Maybe it's a 45-minute drive from campus and they don't want to drive by themselves. Whatever the case is, we set up these weekly guided trips where students can meet up together so they don't have to go together. They'll still carpool and things, but someone from our office, one of our student leaders, will come and meet them there. They'll make sure they feel comfortable. They'll introduce, kind of get everybody talking and meeting each other and have a really nice time together. And then the goal of those trips is actually to have the students continue to come back to you without our paid student in hand. So they can build those relationships then with you directly. So if you're ever interested in a weekly guided trip, Lisa actually manages the students and the process for all of that. So you can connect with Lisa directly or myself, and we'll get you on the list for those. Again, we do about 2 to 4 of those every week throughout the semester, including the summer when we have students available to lead those. This showed up a little weird. So service learning at FGCU, I mentioned this a little bit already, but in case service learning is still kind of this vague idea for you, we have somewhat of a formal definition of service learning. It's a method of teaching, learning, and reflecting. So all 3 of those pieces where we are teaching the students about what they're doing. Often that is where I mentioned you are the co-educators. That is where you can come in and really lend your expertise. You are the ones in your respective areas every single day. I can tell you all about a university setting and how universities run, but you are in your respective areas, whether it's building homes or whether it's a food bank or whatever that is. And so when we talk about teaching, it's hopefully putting extra layers onto what they're already learning in their majors, in their courses, in their classes. And that's where you come in as that co-educator. So teaching, the learning being done by the student, but also sometimes by our partners. The number of times after a service experience that the partners, you tell us, and myself and my team, what you learned, those are some really cool moments. And so don't forget about the learning that you will also have in that process as well. But teaching, learning, and reflecting. This sometimes is as simple and easy as a quick 4 or 5 minute conversation at the very end of a service experience, again with you as the expert in that area, to say, hey, I know it seems like all you did was box food for the last 4 hours, but where do you think that food's going? A simple 5-minute conversation about where that food is going and the impact that has on people, or a simple 5-minute conversation where you just open the door for them to ask questions that maybe they otherwise didn't feel comfortable asking throughout those 4 hours. So sometimes students don't get that opportunity with you and they come back and we reflect with them. And a good example is, and again, it's students don't always feel comfortable asking you because you're the expert. And so they feel a little intimidated sometimes, but to somehow open that door. But, imagine a group of students going to a food bank, and especially during COVID, it was drive up, and they were putting boxes of food into cars directly. And so they saw the cars that were pulling in, which hadn't necessarily always been the case pre-COVID. And so there were students who would come back after some of those experiences and say, I don't understand how a Mercedes just pulled up and got a box of food, or a Porsche. I remember a student being like, I put food into a Porsche. And they ask questions, really good questions that open the doors for you to lend your expertise, for you to share with them or get them talking and thinking and diving into this. Sometimes those are also the experiences that change their major. The number of times that we have students who do service projects and then come back and say, whew, I thought I really wanted to do marine science, but after spending a day building homes or at the food bank, I really think there's something here. Like, I'm really feeling passionate about this. I don't know what this means for my major. And that's then when we say, hey, Have you taken some of the career development services assessments? Maybe you want to rethink some of this. But you get to be part of that process. So yes, we absolutely help you fill needs for your agency and for the community, but you are part of this educational process with us, which is why workshops like this are so important versus just signing up and accepting students whenever they come. And so, kind of continuing that definition, it combines academic classroom curriculum and meaningful service that meets actual needs in the community. So sometimes students will go out and serve on their own. And we require that it be with a nonprofit or government agency, but sometimes they'll be like, oh, I raked up leaves for my neighbor, things like that. One of the ways that we define an actual need for the purposes of degree requirement and auditing their degree is that they are working with a nonprofit or government agency that has said, here is a need we have. And so that's where that partnership is so important, because you're also defining the last part of that definition of meeting actual needs. We rely on you to say, yes, what they did was actually meeting a need for us. And so that can be very open, but it's important that in fact they are meeting a need for a nonprofit or a government agency. The American Association of Colleges and Universities, so AAC&U, they define service learning as a high impact practice, something that changes lives, changes perspectives, changes how the student may think, and later how they live out their life in the community. Puts abstract concepts into concrete form. We see this all the time in the classroom, where they can read all the textbooks that they want, but at FGCU, you can't then just get a degree. You actually have that moment where you, hopefully through your service learning requirement, are putting that into practice and seeing, how does this actually play out? So we can talk about poverty, we can talk about food deserts, we can talk about food insecurity, but actually going and seeing it lived out does exactly that, puts abstract concepts into concrete form. It should be reciprocal. As I mentioned, you should be getting something out of it at the same time the student's getting something out of it, and that should continue. If you ever don't feel that way, please let me know, because something's not working right and we would love to correct that. And if you ever feel like the student's not getting enough out of it for whatever reason, sometimes, and that can be small little nuances. Like sometimes partners will say, hey, we had this group of students and they were on their cell phones the whole time. I can't control for you whether they're on their cell phones the whole time, but it can give you great best practices. And we've been doing this since 1997. I can tell you what has worked, what hasn't worked as cell phones have evolved in the student's life. And it teaches civic responsibility. So I mentioned this is not just about their moment right now at FGCU. This is about for years to come. Who are they as a person? And we talk all the time about negative headlines and the negative news, and depending on the person you talk to, it can feel like the world isn't going well. But the more that we have opportunities for students to broaden their perspectives and to see the truth about some of these issues that they see in the headlines, the more that they'll be able to have that perspective as they go into post-college adulthood. I mentioned it's been integrated into FGCU ever since the beginning. The graduation requirements, so simple logistics here for you to definitely know about is most students, I shouldn't say that, a majority of FGCU students are FTIC, they're first time in college students. This is the first college they have come to. Even if they did dual enrollment here, they're still FTIC. Or lower level, meaning they came in with some credit. If that's the case, their required number of service learning hours is 80 hours. If someone transfers from another university and they are coming in with at least 60 academic credits or more, so more than halfway toward their total of 120 required credits, then their service learning requirement is half. It's 40 hours. I can tell you 90% of our graduating seniors far exceed their requirement, whether it's 80 or 40, because they get invested in what they're doing, which is exactly the goal that we have. So it's important to know that little piece, because you will be helping to verify those hours. I've mentioned this a little bit, but just to make sure everyone is clear, 4 big reasons that we have this service learning requirement: exploring majors and or passions, gaining that real world experience that employers and grad schools are looking for, developing career readiness skills. You're going to hear in just a little bit from Jessica Ray about one of the ways that FGCU is making this happen across the board, and service learning is one piece of that. But essentially that third bullet point of developing career readiness skills is saying, or I should say, is in response to employers across the country for a number of years now saying, hey, we're hiring new college grads, but they can't X, fill in the blank. They can't work together on a team. They can't follow when they need to follow. They don't understand the difference between leadership and followership. Or they can't stand up and give a talk or publicly speak, or they're not writing well. They can't write, they don't have written communication that's developed. Any of these kind of gaping holes that employers have identified for us over the years, across the country, universities are saying, okay, we're going to be responsive to what employers are telling us, and we're going to start working this into everything we do. So one of the things that I'll show you today before you leave is our database of opportunities that come from you all. So every time you have a need, there's a form you fill out. Many of you have filled it out before. When that gets posted into the database where the students see it, at the bottom of every single posting, it says, if you engage in this opportunity, you will most likely enhance the following career readiness skills. And it'll list them out: your leadership abilities, your teamwork abilities, your critical thinking abilities. And yes, you're asked to give input when you submit the form on what skills you think, but we also have someone in our office who reviews everything you submit and kind of verifies, or maybe even adds some pieces. So if you say they're going to be helping with a massive event and they're going to be working the check-in table, we're going to say, okay, they're probably going to get some teamwork skills working with the team running the event. They're probably going to, so forth. But we help the students draw those connections so that they're making that connection when they go to interview, when they apply for grad schools. Because one of the big pieces, employers said this to us over the years, 10, 15 years out now. And we said, well, that's weird because they are getting these skills. Like, we see them on campus in student organizations, in classes, working together as a team. So why is it, or employers would say, they interview with us, we ask them, tell me about a time that you've worked on a team successfully. And they freeze up and they don't have an answer. And we're like, that's so weird. Like, why? We know they can work on a team. We've seen them work on a team. And what was happening is students weren't able to articulate the skills that they had gained. So they had gained it. Sometimes they hadn't realized it, but mostly they had realized it and they couldn't articulate it. That's where us working with career development services, doing interview prep, mock interviews, those sort of things, can help students understand how to articulate that in an interview. So sometimes it's getting them those skills, but a lot of times it's helping them articulate those skills and realizing that that happened. So you, as a co-educator, during that 5-10 minute reflection or longer that you have with them at the end of their experience with you, can not only be about the content of what you worked on that day, but also about some of this. Like, hey, did you notice you all work together really well as a team? Did you know that's one of the top 8 things that employers look for, is the ability to work on a team? Make sure you talk about that. You saying that to them in addition to us saying that to them is going to really help drive that point home. And then building community. So we know that students are more successful in the college setting, and they're more successful earlier on, and they stay at a university longer when they feel connected to each other and they feel connected to the local community. So it's one of our goals to get first-year students feeling connected to the local community and to each other as quickly as possible. It starts today for those students out there. It starts the minute that they start orientation, where we want them to start feeling connected to each other and connected to Southwest Florida. Many of our students are not from Southwest Florida. Many are, but many aren't. And so you all play a massive piece in that. When they're coming to you, ask them, hey, where are you from? They'll be like, oh, I'm from Jersey. How long have you been here? Oh, wow, you've been here 3 weeks. Some of you are participating in our WOW Day of Service in August. Those students will have been here 2 weeks. And so if they're from Jersey, if they're from North Carolina, if they're from New York, it's a really great chance for you to help them feel welcome to this area. You're going to play a piece in that puzzle as well. I'll go over this and then be thinking of any questions that you have based on what I'm talking about here. I mentioned almost 90% of our students do exceed that graduation requirement. That continues to increase each semester, which we're very proud of. FGCU, I mentioned this requirement has been in place since we opened in 1997. We just exceeded this past, our fiscal year is July 1 to June 30th. So we just calculated our hours and our total has just exceeded 5 million hours, which we're very proud of. Raise your hand if you're an alum of FGCU. I know there's some, so you all helped contribute to that. Thank you very much. And you can see in 2018 to 2019, so that fiscal year, we had an annual total of 263,000 hours. And we used to average about that amount. In the last couple of years, something happened in the world. A couple things happened in the world. And now we are averaging about 650 to 700,000 hours every year. Why do you think that might be the case? People moved here. We have a lot more people here. Yep. What other contributing factors probably increased our annual number of total service learning hours that our students do? Dolly?
Growth in enrollment.
Enrollment has certainly increased. That's a huge piece of it.
They wanted to get outside.
Yeah, they're sick of being locked inside.
Greater recognition of the need in the community that might not have been recognized previous to COVID. Other issues, things that happened with the last handful of years.
Yeah, better recognition of the needs in the community. Hurricane Ian provided a lot of opportunity, and Hurricane Ian will actually be reflected in our 22-23 year. So we're waiting for that report to come out. But we know actually that our students contributed, from what they tracked, contributed 30,000 hours that were just connected to Hurricane Ian. So we're very proud of that as well. Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Finding purpose.
Finding purpose, a greater focus on finding their purpose. Okay.
Probably during COVID, a lot of businesses shut down, so their only way to get experience was through services.
Yes, that is a huge one. Lisa. They enjoy volunteering and want to do more. Thanks, Karen, and thanks, Lisa, for reading out anything that gets dropped in the comment box there. Yes, so our biggest correlating factor here that we've been able to draw is during COVID, just as employers started to realize that their employees could do really great work without ever stepping foot into their office. They could work from home. A lot of nonprofits and government agencies realized volunteers can do really great work without ever stepping physically into their offices. And it really kind of blew open the doors for what nonprofits and government agencies were willing to think about and consider as volunteer roles. How can a volunteer help you virtually? Can they make flyers for you from their apartment or from their residence hall? Can they completely coordinate an event for you? Can they do your social media without ever stepping foot in your office? Can they put together initiatives? Can they reach out and build connections for you at other universities, student to student, without ever stepping foot? Can they put together a Zoom training for you that's recorded that you can put on your YouTube channel and use over and over and over again without ever stepping foot? Yes, they can absolutely do all of those things and much, much more virtually for you. And so whereas in the past, just like employers were a little resistant to virtual options for their employees, in the past, nonprofits and government agencies were also resistant to having volunteers work for them virtually. But we've seen that change. And that has just made the world of a difference for our students. Many of our students work 2 or 3 jobs in addition to 15 credit hours a semester in class. And that means their available hours are sometimes at 11 o'clock at night or 1 in the morning. And they often still want to serve, but they just can't get to you physically while you're open. But that doesn't mean that they can't still do really great work for you. And so that is hugely reflected in the increase in hours, and we expect that it will continue to increase over the years here. I mentioned Jamie Wilson and her role working with faculty. We have over 300 classes every year, fall, spring, and summer, that have service learning embedded, integrated into the course. So students can actually, when they're signing up for classes, they can search the catalog and see which classes have a little designation that tells them that if they take this class, they're going to be not only learning the content, but also applying it through service learning in the community. And so that gives, what that means for you is you have about 300 classes currently, and we're growing that number all the time, that you can choose from to work with. So I tell every nonprofit that I ever talk with, think of everything on your to-do list there's probably a class at this university for that thing. If you are planning an event, we have an entire event planning major. We have students who want to do that for the rest of their lives, or at least for their foreseeable future after FGCU. Whatever it is, if you are balancing budgets, if you're reviewing your budget for the next year, if you're doing assessment, you're reviewing surveys and data, we have tons of classes that do research and data and assessment and design assessment and all sorts of things. If you are doing marketing and communication, we have a million classes on that. Whatever is on your to-do list, we probably have a class for, and we can use that. If they're not already one of our service learning classes, we can use your opportunity, your need, as a way to help bring that faculty member into having service in their class. So it's a huge win for everyone. Question, yes.
Can we meet students on campus? Is there a place to meet so they could perhaps do virtual workforce?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, if you ever need a room to meet students, you need help promoting an opportunity to, is anyone from Alliance for Period Supplies on here, in here? They're a really popular partner on campus. A lot of students on campus feel very passionate about the work that they do. They do that often. So we'll reserve a room for them. We help them promote that they're in this room, and you can come meet them and talk about the work that they do. They usually do pretty successfully. They usually do something like that right after the service learning fair. So they'll come to the service learning fair, they'll get a huge list. I mean, it's a very popular organization on campus. So they'll get a huge list of students, and then a week later or 2 weeks later, they have us reserve a room for them to meet all of those students who said that they were interested in the work that they do. Obviously, there's some fall off there, and so if 100 students sign up, they might get 30 or 40 that show up and start doing really great work with them. Yeah. Other questions about all of this content that we're talking about here? Okay. If you have other questions that pop up, just let me know. So I'm going to show you a couple frameworks that we operate from, because again, you as our co-educators, I think this is just important information for you to know. The first framework that we operate from is called our active citizen continuum. Raise your hand if you've heard me talk about this before. So, oh, just a few of you. Excellent. Well, let me dive in. So our active citizen continuum, I see Karen, I see your hand. Our active citizen continuum is a framework for students to begin to understand how service learning and volunteerism has different levels and different tiers and different abilities in the community. So this is what it looks like. Sorry, the top's a little cut off here in the room because of the Zoom, but far left, it's a 4-stage model going from left to right, and you probably got a handout, hopefully got a handout so you can see that right in front of you as well. 4-stage model from left to right, with the far left being the member stage and the far right being the active citizen stage. We tell students all the time, this is not a, oh my gosh, I'm on the far left and I'm a horrible person, and I'm on the far right and I'm an amazing person. Not at all. It's a level of awareness and understanding about your connection and understanding of the community around you. So I'll talk you through the stages a little bit and then have you do a little exercise about how this might apply to the work that you do and your connection with our students. So in the member role, these are individuals who just aren't all that concerned, or as it says, concerned with their role in social problems. I take it a little bit further than just social problems and say, really just not how, they're not concerned with how they connect with the rest of the world. So these are people who drive how they want to drive on the road without concern about how it affects anyone else. I see some people looking around. They may buy any product off the shelf without concern of how that impacts supply chain or that company, or whether they choose paper or plastic bags, or what they even watch. I tell students all the time, do you know what Netflix makes more of? They make more of whatever you watch. Every single thing we do impacts something about the world around us, because sometimes students will be like, my life doesn't impact anyone. I just sit at home and I game and I watch Netflix. Like, Netflix makes more of whatever you watch. And so in this role though, far left, the member stage, everyone, if you're in this role, it's not that you're bad, it's just that you're not thinking about how your life impacts anyone beyond your bubble. Most students have had a volunteer requirement somewhere in the past, usually in high school, middle school, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, whatever that was. And so most students will say, well, I'm in the volunteer stage here, where I'm well-intentioned, but may not be well-educated about social issues. These are students who go out on a Saturday morning, sometimes because they have to, maybe because they want to, and they maybe pack food at Harry Chapin Food Bank or something like that. They went out and they served. They went beyond their bubble, but it doesn't make them an expert. It didn't necessarily educate them about the social issue. It's not like because they did that for 4 hours, now they fully understand food insecurity or food deserts or anything like that. But they went and did something and they reached beyond their bubble. So that's the volunteer stage. It's these next two stages that we work with FGCU students to get to. So we want students to start to ask those questions. I gave the example earlier of students who asked the question of, well, why did I put a box of food into a Porsche? Or why did I put a box of food into a Mercedes? That's this stage. That's this conscientious citizen stage. So again, you can see the full thing on your paper, but they start to get concerned with discovering the root causes. They ask those questions, why? We are a big school for water and water quality. We have the water school here. The state is more and more pouring resources into us for the water school and water quality and water studies. And so we attract students who are really concerned with environmental science, and they're very passionate about it. And so sometimes they will say, how can people just throw litter on the beach? Don't they know that it doesn't just disappear? We'll say, how would they know that? If no one's ever told them that, how would they know that? And so this stage is all about asking those questions, diving deep. This is also the stage where we encourage students to take classes on those things. We're like, we're at a university that has the water school. Take classes over there, talk to experts. On a lunch break, go talk to an expert on this campus about whatever topic it is that you want to know more about. We also encourage students, and we actually have a full list on our website that one of our student leaders put together, where you pick any social issue and we'll give you documentaries on Netflix and Hulu to watch. We'll give you podcasts to listen to. We'll give you articles to read, books to check out of the library on that topic, so that if you are in this stage, we want to support that and welcome that and welcome the questions and not be offended at all if they're asking questions that might be a little rude or hard to talk about. We want that to happen in this stage. And then as they work their way through, usually what starts to happen is they start to see deep root level solutions. So instead of doing a beach cleanup, because a beach cleanup is a great thing and it's needed, but it only sits in this volunteer stage because it's more of what we call a Band-Aid. We talk with the students all the time about Band-Aid versus root level solutions. And both are needed, but we want students at FGCU to start going beyond the Band-Aid solutions. So when students say, don't they just know that litter in the ocean doesn't just disappear, that they can't just throw their Snickers wrapper on the beach and that it just disappears? Don't they just know that? And we ask them that question and they say, oh, I guess maybe our class project should be educating people. Okay, yeah. So we've had students, instead of doing a beach cleanup on a Saturday morning, we've had them set up a table at the parking lot of the beach and talk to people, sometimes walking with them as they are taking their items down to the beach. And just helping them understand that their litter is not going to disappear. And that educational moment can sometimes be a root level solution that is far more effective than doing a beach cleanup every single Saturday. Now, again, both are needed. Band-Aids and root level work is both needed, but we want students to begin to understand the difference and the importance of each level. So at this level, they're diving into all, this is just a learning stage. So volunteer is a doing stage. The conscientious citizen stage is a learning stage. And this last stage, active citizenship, that's all about solutions. So if they realize people just aren't educated and that's why they're littering, well, then their active citizen solution might be putting together a campaign that educates people, maybe even at an early age. Maybe they decide, hey, let's educate them in the school. So then they start working with the K through 12 system and they're putting together, we've had students, we've had classes, actually some of our education classes put together curriculums. And when they're learning how to write lesson plans, they write lesson plans for kindergartners on where does litter go. These are really great service learning opportunities that dive much deeper along the continuum than just doing a beach cleanup on a Saturday morning. And there have been times that people have called us to say, hey, we need 20 students to park cars this Saturday. And we'll say, okay, we can promote that for you, but what event's going on? Tell me more. Tell me more about how our students can get involved in the deeper level work that you're doing. Questions about this continuum? Does this sit well with you? What does this sound like to you? Give me some feedback. What are you thinking when I talk about this a little bit? Yeah, Dolly.
When I look at this, it kind of is like how people become donors too to me. It's like, sometimes you just make the gift, sometimes, I'm in philanthropy. so
Yeah.
this is my lens, anyway, it's just interesting. I think there's a lot of, it's similar to even other types of work that we all do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of correlations to draw to the work that you do, whether you're in philanthropy or anything. So do me a favor and turn your page over. So you have the Active Citizen page, turn that page over. And what I want you to do first on your own and then at your table, I want you to write down some of the opportunities that you have for students at your organization in each of those 3 stages that I just talked about. What do you have that students can do at the volunteer stage? What do you have that they can learn about? Where's the learning in the conscientious citizen stage? So do you have experts that can talk? Do you have documentaries you've made or videos you've made? Like, how can they learn from you? And then that last one, the solutions-based, the active citizen level, what can students do for you to engage in root level solutions? So take just about 2 minutes on your own and then start sharing at your table what you've written down, and then I'll have you share out as well. So. All right, let's talk about just a couple examples of what you've written down. So in the volunteer stage, what are some volunteer stage opportunities that you've thought about at your organization? Who's willing to share a couple from? Yeah, go ahead. Sure, yeah.
I'm representing BERT, the Benita Estero Rail Trail, which is a mixed-use path that is planned to take place or be laid where the unused railroad track is. So that ugly railroad track that goes from, we're going to start on Lico Road and go to Benita Beach Road, that goes through your community perhaps, or next to your community or something, and it's just ugly and there's nothing there. We want to put a mixed-use path in there. So well, one of the things we can do is donate funds. You don't have to think about anything. You don't have to know anything to give us some money. Please help. And number two, once the trail is there, help keep it clean. That would be the band,
Yeah.
like you said.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Other volunteer opportunities that you thought of for your organization?
Data entry.
Data entry, yes, absolutely, absolutely. I saw a hand over here too. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm from Neighbors Network of Lee County. We are coordinating services for elderly within their homes, so they don't have to make other choices that aren't always pleasant. And it could be just serving people in their homes, outside their homes, in their living space, outside their home, to tidy and clean things that are difficult to do, which might be something which would lead to a different decision for them.
Yeah, excellent. So the volunteer one, we know it's easy. Let's move to into conscientious citizen. So who would share a couple of things that you thought of for your organization in the conscientious citizen stage? Yeah, go ahead.
We're Future Forestry. We plant trees, and this, the obvious work is planting and moving mulch and things like that. But the conscientious citizen is, why are trees important? How do they grow? What are the types of trees, and what are the benefits for the community?
Yeah, those are all great questions. Why do trees matter? Lisa?
So Karen Canetta of Firetown Museum says volunteer for a special event, preservation of artifacts, history presentation about preserving artifacts, and why it is important.
Yeah, so that was a couple of volunteer ones and a couple of conscientious citizen ones. Thanks, Karen. I think go ahead.
Name's Susanna. I work for AmeriCorps. And what I wrote is the volunteer aspect would be like pulling weeds and invasives. But as a conscientious citizen, it would be about understanding the significance of how the invasive plants impact the ecosystem, and also just having the opportunity to understand like the differences of invasive plants.
That's great. And one of the great things about the conscientious citizen stage is you can not only engage with our students in that stage to help them learn and understand these deeper root level issues, but you can also use them in the volunteer stage to bring others into the conscientious citizen stage. Meaning you could have them they could create trainings, webinars, advocacy campaigns for you where they're doing the work to educate others on these questions of why does the world need trees? Those sorts of things. Not only can you help them understand it, our students understand it, but you can also then use them to educate others. We did have an organization during COVID that took time, it did take time to train a group of our students to do online trainings. So they had one person who educated, it was an organization that worked on human trafficking in Southwest Florida. And their goal was to educate the community on signs to look for, what to do if you see something that raises a flag for you. And they had one person doing trainings. How many trainings a week do you think one person can do? Not as many as 12 people can do. And so they took the time, it was an investment of time on their part, to train a core group of our students who then during COVID did virtual trainings with churches, with teachers, with firefighters, with any population that they could get in touch with. And so they were able to multiply the work that they were doing by exactly this, bringing other people, using our students to bring other people into that conscientious citizen stage of thought. The last one, active citizen stage, looking at that root level, or as it says, assistant students, as students develop their own created solutions to issues. What thoughts did you have in that realm? Anyone over here want to share what you wrote down?
Well, for us, I work with the Area Agency on Aging for Southwest Florida. So we serve the older adults and adults with disability, and we really are trying to make sure that our communities, which we serve 7 counties, are age friendly. So I think doing the research with the Shady Breast Institute here at FGCU, but really in making sure that all of our communities are aware that we have a lot of aging within the community. So really engaging in teaching about age-friendly ageism and doing the presentation about social isolation and loneliness and the impacts and benefits of health and wellness. So sort of to what you were alluding to earlier, doing those webinars and presentations for the community.
Excellent, excellent. One other example? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm listening with David Lawrence Centers, Centers for Substance Abuse and Behavioral Health and Mental Health. And so mental health is important for everyone who wants therapy, right? Once in a while. But I really think that it would be interesting to see a group of students kind of develop ways of how they can interact with the community, all ages, since we have kids age 4 and up on our centers. And recently I found my 5-year-old daughter, they went there and they taught them how to handle their emotions. And something so little like that can really make a difference because kids don't know how to handle their emotions a lot of the times, or like anybody really, any adult. So like just to kind of build up like a way, like a creative video or a teaching on how to teach somebody how to handle their emotions, where they're not like using drugs or abusing other things to handle that, vice versa, like other activities like running or going to the gym or going to the movies or something like that.
That's great.
Create ways to do that.
Yeah, I love that, because it would be very easy for a group to work with mental health center or inpatient clinic or something and be like, oh, we're gonna repaint the walls for you at this clinic. It'd be very easy for a student group to say that. But what you just described is so much more effective and gets to the active citizen level, the root of the issue. How do we help address the root of the issue and educate people about the need for mental health assistance? Love it. So you start to get the idea. This is just a taste. Keep brainstorming for your own organization. Take this back if you have a team that you work with in your organization and talk with them about this. So this is one framework. I mentioned there's a couple frameworks. We're not going to go into massive detail in each of our frameworks, but I do want to hit one other framework is our, I want to mention quickly the 2 here that are listed. So the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. If you're not familiar with this already, it is a list of 17 goals set by the United Nations that they hope to achieve globally. So all of the countries that are part of the United Nations are making efforts to hit these goals by 2030. We anticipate that they will extend that date a little bit. But why that's important for you to know is when you participate with our students in any way, but especially like our service learning fairs and events like that, everything we do is organized around the Sustainable Development Goals instead of just saying, hunger as a social issue or poverty as a social issue. We actually phrase it in the same way that the goals are stated through the United Nations. So if you're not familiar with that, I encourage you to look at that. And then I talked about the career readiness skills, and we actually use an organization called NACE. So before I jump to that, National Association of Colleges and Employers. So National Association of Colleges and Employers. I mentioned there's lots of partnership between employers and colleges and universities. That is the main association for that. And they have defined together, they've defined the top 8 skills that employers are looking for. 4 types of service. So this is the other handout that you have stapled to the handout we were just looking at. There are 4 types of service: direct, indirect, advocacy, and research. And so I want us to talk about these right here. Okay, so this matches what you see in front of you in your own handout. And very similar, I'm going to just talk through and make sure you understand that. And then I want us to do a little brainstorming on these as well, because this will really open doors for, as you consider students coming to your organization, for what exactly they could do for you. Direct service and indirect is probably what we see the most of. Direct service being where the student is actually handing food to someone who's hungry, or they're actually putting the tree in the ground. They're actually, as it says, directly affecting the person, the places, the animals, or the things that we want to impact. So that one's usually pretty straightforward. Indirect service is everything happening behind the curtain. So They're helping to answer phones, they're filing paperwork, they're checking people in, they're any number of things, but they're not necessarily interacting with the person, animal, item that you're actually working towards. So direct and indirect, pretty straightforward. That's what we see the most of. The untapped areas or potentially untapped areas for your organization are probably in the other two areas of advocacy and research. Prime example of advocacy is what I was telling you earlier during COVID, where a group of students were trained to do trainings for an organization. They were teaching others about the mission of that organization and why that issue, why anyone in the community should care about that issue. So it's service that requires you to raise awareness, educate, or work for or against an issue or solution. I say or against, and it's in there on purpose because we've also had organizations that are fighting against things. Sierra Club during COVID also had a really great project with our students where they taught students how to do high-level legislative advocacy work against one specific bill that was about to get passed. And our students' eyes were opened in so many ways about how our legislative process works, about the power that they can have, about the power an organization can have. And there is probably something in the community that your organization wants changed or kept the same, or that you would love to see one way or the other, that you could bring our students in where they can help you in that process and learn so much from it. So that's certainly working for or against, but also just educating. You can have students table on campus for you to teach other students about your organization, about the issue that you work toward or against. So that's a good example of advocacy. And then research. This is a huge undertapped area. And I really encourage each organization to think about what is it that a student could do for you in research. I mentioned we have classes across this campus all the time that teach students how to do research and teach them how to do research well. But you know what they often use is hypothetical information, because the professor's task is just to teach them the skill set of how to do research. If we can have them do that same assignment, just like I talked about with the public speaking example, they can do the same assignment, except they use real data from you. Now it's a service to your organization, and at the same time, they're learning under the guidance of a faculty member to do research. So a lot of organizations, ourselves included, will say, we know we do really great work. We know it in our core, but a lot of that is anecdotal. Using our students to engage in research can give you the facts, the figures, the narrative in a scientific way that allows you to write really impactful annual reports, really great grant applications. You can use that data in so many different ways. So really think about how students can help you through research. And then whenever you do want to engage in a research project, we have an entire office for research on this campus that we partner with. So if you came to me and said, hey, actually, I just had a meeting yesterday with a partner who they said very similar. We know that our organization has a massive impact in this community, but we don't have the data. And they want to do a 15 to 20-year longitudinal study. That's a big ask. But you know who I called first? Our research office. And I said, hey, let's talk about this more. And we're going to have that partner meet with a couple different faculty members and see if we can't essentially sell this to a faculty member who would work it into their class. Bless you. Work it into the class every semester for the next 10 to 15 years. So whatever you can think of, we can explore that and try to find a good match for you on campus. That all said, go ahead and flip this piece of paper over. And I want you just to jot down a couple of things that come to your mind in that regard around each of those types of service. Again, direct and indirect is probably what you're already engaging with, but spend a little more time in how could you have students do advocacy or research for you?
Oh, so sorry.
No, you can. All right, so what do we have? What are some ideas that came to mind for advocacy? Anyone willing to share for advocacy what you were thinking of? Go ahead.
Planning an event.
Okay,
So
tell me more.
be planning an event where you're talking to other people and recruiting other people and doing some research or something like that to spread the word.
Absolutely, yeah. Helping to educate others on exactly what you were talking about before of, hey, did you know there's an empty rail here? And B, did you know that there's something we can do with that? Yeah, Joe.
Obviously, we're looking to get creating a new building, a senior center in Benita Springs. So we want to use the old library for the senior center so they could help advocacy for that.
Yeah, especially students could help with advocacy if there's maybe a process you have to go through to get that building. Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Well, a lot of, we're with Paradise Coast Sports Complex, a lot of our service is always direct, but I thought for advocacy, we have an outdoor fitness center. We're always trying to drive memberships, promote healthy living lifestyle. So that could be something that students could do at a local event or even here at the university, kind of tailoring to raise awareness of that activity that we have and trying to be community exception to it.
Yeah, and sometimes organizations will tell us about specific populations that they're trying to get their message in front of. So we're trying to educate more seniors that this exists or whatever the case. And our students can work with you on that. They can either go to specific geographic locations, they can figure that out with you, especially social media. Did you know that you can target social media advertising toward certain populations of people? Our students can help you with that, especially our classes that are focused on social media. We're going to jump to our research category. You want to talk about what you shared for research?
Yes, actually.
Great.
We would be looking for some students who would be willing to work on a research project that studied the impact of Airbnb and temporary seasonal living situations on the affordable housing situation here and the homeless population. Why we have such a problem with that here related directly to Airbnb temporary seasonal.
That sounds like I want to read that report. Yeah, email that to me and we'll make that happen. I love that idea. Other research ideas? Yeah.
Legislative review, especially how it affects education.
Yeah, education in legislation right now. Go ahead.
We treat uninsured and below poverty patients holistically. So instead of giving things like opioids, narcotics, and controlled substances, so just like a long-term study of how pain management is dealt with in that way.
Great, excellent. Cornell, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, so with our organization, getting ready to possibly see what it would look like to do research into AI.
AI.
Present our online courses and what that interaction looks like with the AI and the students that are going through this.
Yes, remind me about that, because we have a faculty member on campus who is going to spend the next year focused on AI and might be a good connection for you. Excellent. So you start to see, again, this is just to get your gears turning a little bit about how you can go beyond having students park cars for you. That's really the goal here. There's so much more, they can do that, but they can do so much more for you. So I want to jump through some of this. Okay, some ways of engaging students. I'm going to put a lot of this up here on the screen. Getting started page of our website. If you are not already in our database, again, this is where the electronic version of the agenda is going to be really, really helpful. And so if you scan that QR code, you'll see all these links. But the getting started page of our community partner area of the website, this is the #1 thing that you want to make sure you've done. So you would click that link if you are not already in our database. It's a 2-step process. Step 1 is getting in our database. Step 2 is submitting things into our service learning opportunities portal that the students all use, which I'll show you here in just a minute. So get you in the database, get you putting service learning opportunities in as well. I mentioned our guided trips earlier. but you can click that link to see those. Class-based projects. Again, these are all ways that you can engage and get started working with FGCU. I tell partners all the time, FGCU is a big buffet. And so you have to decide where on the buffet are you going to start? What's best for you? If you try to eat everything on the buffet, you will get sick and you will not enjoy your experience. So don't try to do everything at first. There are some organizations in this room that have started small and built up and built up and built up, and they're engaging in all 4 types of service. They're engaging in all respects of the active citizen continuum. But if that's not you, that's okay. Just think about what are those small ways you can get started, and are you ready to start working with a class and a faculty member, or are you not there yet? It does take time from you, but the reward, the ROI, the return on investment for you is large. But we all know the bigger return you want, the more you have to also invest. So there is some investment, but don't try to bite off everything and eat everything off the buffet at once. But more continued ways that you can engage. So registered student organizations, individual students will contact you all the time, especially if you come to the Service Learning Fair. I cannot emphasize that enough. Hopefully you got the email from me yesterday saying registration is now open for the Service Learning Fair. It does fill up. We always have a waiting list. So I encourage you to do that early. We have had a number of partners in years past sign up and not show up, which is sad, very, very sad, because we always have a waiting list. And so there were always organizations who could have come. And so unfortunately, we have to kind of go to a punitive system for that now. So only sign up if you know that you can be there, because we are going to have to hold your registration in future terms if you sign up but you don't show up. So please, please, please make sure that you can come before you actually register. Social media takeovers is another thing. During the school year, we have a student leader in our office who manages our social media account. And we have been doing once a month. We're open to doing more, where we allow your organization to submit things to us. We'll post them for you, videos and pictures, and to really get your name out there to our social media following, which is mainly students. Our annual events, such as these workshops, Service Learning Fair, all of that registration for you as community partners is on our Eventbrite page, again, linked in the electronic version of the agenda. We have 4 big events in the fall. Our WOW Day of Service is August 26th. That is already full. So WOW Day of Service is full, and unless Lisa says otherwise, but I think it's full. Our Service Learning Fair, I said registration just went live yesterday. We open until August 11th, so make sure you register. That is happening on September 5th. That is the Tuesday right after Labor Day. Not our ideal date because it's the day after a holiday weekend. However, we know that a lot of classes require it, and so we still anticipate that we'll see 700 to 800 students come through that event, and they're all looking for partners for service learning. Soaring with Service is a great event that happens out on the library lawn. That happens in September. I think the date is in the agenda. No, it's not. It's September like 27th or something. We will reach out. We'll send another email about Soaring with Service. That's another opportunity for you to table with our students and advertise the opportunities that you have. And then Make a Difference Day is our day of service, another Saturday of service, and that happens October 28th. Any questions about anything you see on the screen, any of these opportunities to engage with our students? Our partner workshops like this happen every semester, including summer semester, obviously. And our next one will be November 2nd. So if you want to mark that on your calendar already, registration is visible, but you can't actually click the link yet. I think it opens in the coming couple weeks. And then Community Engagement Day. Has anyone gone to Community Engagement Day at Eagle X? Okay, just a couple. It's a really powerful event. I see more hands coming up. It's a really powerful event in April every year. And it's your opportunity to see all the amazing work that our students have done in the community. It's in partnership with, so it's all under the same Alico roof. It's in partnership with Research Day, Internship Summit, and our leadership showcase as well. And so you'll see projects, students stand there and they showcase the projects that they've done in the community and what they've done with internships, what they've done with research. You will walk away amazed at what has been done. Where this can be a huge win for you is not only the inspiration of coming and seeing these projects, but our students, when they work with you and they do these great projects throughout the year, encourage them to showcase their work at the April event, because we have awards that have a small cash prize with them. And when they win that small cash prize goes to your organization. So they are essentially competing for those awards on your behalf. They're also showcasing the work that they did with you. So if you have a really great project throughout the year, even if it's in the fall, even though the event is until April, tell them, hey, sign up to showcase at Community Engagement Day in April. Oh, and we need judges for that event. And we will email, I know Cornell's been a judge for us every year, I think, for the last couple of years. And that is a really great experience as well. I mentioned this before, not all student connections and everything listed here are created equally. So it's really important to find your best fit and where you want to start. And if you're not sure about that, chat with me and I can help you figure that out for your organization. Just real quick, some post-event opportunity or post-event practices for you, post-service practices. One is to know that students will track their hours that they spend with you, or they should. So there's two big takeaways for you. When you work with a student, it's that reflection piece. Make sure that every time you or your agency works with a student, that you're having some reflection at some point, but that you're also encouraging them to track their hours in our system, that they have to track it for graduation. It's called Eagle Service Network. Tell them to track it as immediately as possible. They can track it on their phones right there while on site with you. That's really the best case scenario. Why that matters though, is because say a student works with you tomorrow, they come and serve with you for 6 hours, and then they go to graduate in 3 years, and they're trying to graduate and they say, well, I did these 6 hours with Habitat 3 years ago. There's a strong likelihood that you may not remember them. You might not have that record anymore. Staff may have changed, any number of things. So we certainly encourage them to track it as they do it. But if you can also encourage them that, and we can send you, well, it's in here as well, but I'll show you the video where you can literally pull that up on site right there. It's a 4-minute video and it shows them how to track the hours. Most students pull that video up on one browser and they open another browser and they follow along and they track their hours according to that video, if it's the first time they're doing it. So certainly encourage them to track their hours. Communicate names back to us. So every time you work with students, we would love to have a record of that. So even a quick email to say, hey, these 8 students came and volunteered with us for 6 hours. What that allows us to do is to also follow up with those students and one, encourage them to track their hours again. So they're hearing it from you and they're hearing it from us. And then also we can say, oh, I see that you volunteered at Harry Chapin Food Bank this past week. Did you know we have a speaker coming to campus on food insecurity? I think you might be really interested in that. That helps us move them along the active citizen continuum. Whereas they may otherwise not have known or thought to go to a speaker on food insecurity, because you gave us those names, we can help connect them to other things that are happening on campus and in the community regarding the issues that they touched while they were with you. And then we really strongly encourage this bottom part. It seems obvious, but just because all of our lives are so busy and so chaotic every day, it can be easy to forget this piece of following up with students. They come, they spend 4 hours with you on a Saturday morning. If they never hear from you again, it's somewhat likely that they won't think about you again until they have to track those hours or whatever. But we see the most success. I mentioned Alliance for Period Supplies. They are fantastic about this. Every time a student volunteers with them, they follow up. They say, hey, thanks for coming out. Did you know we have 2 more things coming up next week? Students love that. And just like everyone else on this earth, students get a ton of emails. And so text is also really common now. I know that feels personal to a lot of people of like, oh, that's my phone. If you're not comfortable texting from your phone and your organization doesn't have a texting system already, Google Voice has a texting feature where you can have a free Google account and text students through that. Students are very used to getting texts and sometimes respond much better to text than they do emails. So keep that in mind as another form of communication, but the big message is to really follow up with students and keep that relationship being built. Send them additional information for what's coming up next. Send them pictures like, hey, Joe and Bob, thanks for coming out on Saturday. I wanted you to have 5 pictures that we took from this weekend. It builds that relationship with them and that trust with them. And then I want to show you a few things on our website. So I'm just going to come over to the podium here. So if a student is ever with you and says, I don't know how to track my hours, this is our homepage. It is so easy, fgcu.edu/service learning. And right at the top of our homepage are the 4 main buttons they may ever ask you about or want to know. And it's really good for you to see what they're seeing so that you can connect with our students in the best ways possible and make sure that you are your organization is fully visible to our students. So hours is right here. That's also where they're going to find that video. So I'll show you how obvious it is. If they're saying, oh, I don't know how to track my hours, top of our homepage of our website, track your hours. And then at the very top, how to track your hours, video guide. You laugh, but we still get a million emails and phone calls every day. How do I track my hours? So that's right there. This is our calendar of events. So when you're thinking to yourself, what's the next upcoming things for students? You can click right there and see what the students see when they click here. And it's those events that I was just mentioning before of our WOW Day of Service, being a site leader for our WOW Day of Service, our Service Learning Fair that hopefully you're all registering for, our Soaring with Service event. Oh, there it is, September 27th. I was trying to remember that date. And then Make a Difference Day that I mentioned in October. So those are the things that students are seeing as the next upcoming events. These 2 buttons, though, get used the most on our website. Students come here looking for a partner to work with, and they can click on Find a Community Partner, and that takes them to a database that is what I mentioned. Make sure that your organization is in that database. Or they come here looking for a specific opportunity with a date and time. Like, hey, this Saturday, I've got some time. What can I do? So I'll show you quickly. If you go into Community Partner Database and search for a community partner, we currently have 376 active partners in here. They can search by keyword. So they can put in, I want to work with kids. And so they'll see all the organizations that have kids somewhere in their name or description. And then they can also search this by county, by category, or by that sustainable development goal. Why that's important is you want to look at your information and make sure that your organization is visible, is accurate, is correct. Because when students are in those classes that I mentioned, over those 300 classes that we have every year, they come in here in class and they look in the database and they find, as a group, sometimes if they're in a group, they're looking through this. So you want to make sure you're there. You want to make sure your information is accurate. And if not, you'll see when you click on your page, there is a request to update. So if I'm this organization, here's all the information that the student is seeing. And then at the bottom, hiding under this Zoom box, is request to update information. It's that easy. You just click that, you tell us what needs updated, and someone on our team will update that for you. The great thing is there are no passwords or usernames that you have to remember for anything that we have. Yay. Yes, Matthew.
Do you have to, I guess, a service learning project to be active in the list? Because I couldn't find Island Park on the agency list.
Do you say that again? Do you have to?
Do you, before you're listed, do you need like an active request?
No, you should be active. We can look at yours after this and I'll make sure that whatever the glitch is gets fixed so that you are active. But that's exactly why we want everybody to look and make sure that your information is there, that you're active. And if not, then we need to know so we can fix it. So coming back here, that was this button, find a community partner, and then find service learning opportunities, as I mentioned, is date and time specific. That doesn't mean, though, that you can't say date and time is flexible. but these are more specific opportunities. So that other database was just, if a student finds you in that other database that Matthew, you were just saying your page isn't visible to you, in that database, a student has to call you and say, what do you have available? When can I come out? What tasks do you have that I can do this week? Here, this is where students go for very specific things, like volunteers needed for bilingual community story time. So they know what they're getting into with this. There's dates and times. Sometimes it looks like it's past, like this says July 10th. All that means is that when you click on it, you'll see that was the first day it was available, but it actually doesn't end until July 28th. So we tell students all the time that if you see it here, if it's visible, it's available. As soon as that end date goes by, then it will disappear from this page. Yeah.
We have bills that are available every Friday and Saturday, like forever.
Great.
How would students know about that without having to call us?
You can put it in here in the form, and I'll show you guys the form. It's also linked in the agenda, but I'll show you where all the resources are for that, including that form. Put it in the form, and you can say in the description, this is every Friday from this time to this time. And then what happens is we keep that active for 2 semesters. And then our student who manages all of this on the back end, he will reach out to you and say, would you like this to remain active after the 2 semesters is reached? Other questions about this database? This is what gets used probably the most next to that other database that I said, but you really want to make sure that you're in here, because if students are searching this stuff, I guess I'll say it's one of the first questions I always ask if a partner says, you know what, we just haven't been hearing from students. I'll say, well, what do you currently have in here that students are going to see? So you may know you have a ton of needs, but if it's not in here, this is where students are looking. So and I say, submit everything you can think of. If you want tutors on Mondays, you want office assistants, you want research done, submit it all into here. What we also do is when that comes into us, so volunteers needed for bilingual community story time, we post it here. So all 15,000 students can see it. However, we also start to shop it around. So I'll send that over to our language and literature department. And I'll say, hey, does this make sense to work into any of your summer classes? Just want you to know about it. Or if there's a student organization focused on, we have student organizations for a lot of different pre-professional groups. So, the Future Accountants of America, or, whatever. We'll try to connect all of those for you on the back end. So know that we're doing what we can to shop it in both a very broad way of just across all of campus, but also pretty specific populations. Yeah.
How far in advance, like if you have an event on a specific day, how far in advance do you want to submit it? Or what's the latest that you can submit? Let's put it that way.
We have posted things for the very next day before. Just know, obviously, the longer you wait, the less people that will see it. I will also say I've had some of my more type A community partners who submit things for the entire year. Totally fine, but know that it shows to them by date. That's the default setting in the system that we can't change. And so they're probably, if you submit something now for December, it's great because you can check it off your list. It's in there. You don't have to think about it again. But they're probably not going to start calling you until it moves up the list a little bit. Or if there's keywords in there, like help kids at Christmas time, and they're searching kids because they can use that search box there to search keywords, then they're going to see it. So I always say submit it early. Just know that it might not move up the default list until November comes. Yeah, question.
When I submitted the form, it actually asks, do you want us to advertise this to faculty as well? Where does the faculty see that? Do they see it on this page, or is there a separate place that it goes? I'm just curious.
We email it to them directly. So that's connected to what I was saying before of like, and we try to do that for every need, whether you mark that box or not. If you mark that box or you say yes, we'll just make an extra effort to do that. Because if we get 60 needs that come in 1 week, we may not have time to market all of those. So we'll look for the ones that checked that box. Other questions? Yeah, Rich.
In that same vein, is there an expectation or allowance for faculty and staff or staff to participate in the community?
That is a great question. So currently, we have supervisors on campus who will encourage it as like a team building activity or something along those lines. And so we certainly have faculty and staff who go and serve in the community together. There is no HR policy around that. Some companies and organizations have that where it's like, okay, each year you can take 8 hours and go serve in the community. We don't have that as an HR policy, but a lot of supervisors do encourage it as a team building activity. I get calls, somewhat frequently from other offices of, hey, my team of 20 wants to go serve somewhere. Any ideas where we could go? So that happens a lot, but not officially in writing from HR. Other questions? Okay, I want to show you your resource portal on our homepage. So coming back to our homepage, I showed you these 4 buttons that get used by our students all the time. As you scroll down, you'll see a button or a portal or a page, whatever you want to call it, for each of the populations that we serve. So we serve all 15,000 students. We serve all of the faculty that I mentioned are teaching those service learning courses, but we serve all of you and we want to help you in every way possible. So everything behind this button is for you and honestly is a review of what I've shared so far this morning. So that electronic version of the agenda is a great resource, but this page is also a really great resource as well. So if you have not already, here's that get started as a co-educator, which has step 1, here's how to join the database. Step 2, here's how to submit service learning opportunities using this form. So if you click on this form and you fill that form out, that's where then it goes to this. So you fill out the form, we review it, we clean it up, we put it into this format where students can see it. If I scroll back up and show you these other tabs, just to make sure you don't miss it, that form is also right here. So please submit it here. So that is exactly the same form as step 2 in the first tab. If you have a research request, question.
Can you do multiple forms as we grow as an organization and might be new things 6 months from now?
Absolutely. You can fill out that form as many times daily, weekly, monthly as you have opportunities. And I will say the organizations that post more opportunities are the organizations that get known on campus. So students talk. I don't know if you know this, but students talk to each other. And they often will say, hey, I have to do the service learning project for class. Where did you go? They'll say that to their roommate. They'll say that to their fraternity brothers. They'll say that. Where did you go? What did you do? And so they tend to feed off of each other. So it is sort of building a reputation on campus. And the more things you post, the more they're going to see this organization that keeps popping up. Every time I search for something, this organization pops up. So think about those keywords as well, and who those keywords might target. So if you need social media help, maybe your keywords are going to be around Instagram and Facebook or social media. So think about them. If you want a research project, at this point, we don't have a million requests for research projects. We have a form for it right here. So you can fill out this form for research projects like we were talking about earlier. You can also just email me at this point because we don't have a ton of them. But as that hopefully grows, we'll start using that form more and more. This Connect with FGCU students is literally everything we've been talking about, the database, the guided trips that we talked about, the events like our service learning fairs. I can tell you if there's only one event that you can participate in every year, our service learning fair is it. Because those are students who are hungry to find opportunities. They are coming because they want to walk out of that room with some very definitive opportunities. And so if you already registered for our service learning fair, you see there is strong encouragement in the registration form. And then we, after you register, continue the encouragement to make sure that you come to the fair with what we've been doing here. This is a kind of worksheet with a list of direct projects, indirect projects, advocacy projects, research projects, everything that you can think of already kind of thought through, that if a student walks up and says, hey, I'm looking for something that I can do for your organization, short-term, long-term. You may ask them like, hey, are you thinking about this like once or twice as a one-time opportunity? Or are you thinking about this for a 10 to 12 week long experience, maybe as part of a class? And so that then you can share with them whatever your list looks like of short-term, long-term, direct, indirect, advocacy, research. And having that ready before you come and then being able to share that with students, that really helps move the projects forward faster and more efficiently. And then verification of hours. If you ever have questions about verifying hours, this is all very helpful. My biggest go-to when a community partner shares a concern about students not knowing how to track hours, or maybe you don't know what to do, is to look at that video, the same video the students see, because it's 4 minutes, it's fast, and it really does walk through every step of the process. And then if you're ever not sure about how to sign up for our workshop, you're like about to email me, when's the next workshop? You can certainly still email me, but you can also always look here and look at, it links to our Eventbrite page for upcoming things. All right, so that is a ton of information. Any immediate questions? We're going to take just like a quick 5-minute break before we transition into our next thing, but any immediate questions that any of this has brought up for you? Yeah, go ahead.
I saw 300 some organizations. The people that use this service the most, they get 1,000 students throughout a year, 500. Do you have any, you track like the 10 best organizations that use this the best? How many students do they have?
That's a difficult question because not every organization is looking for quantity. Some are looking for depth. So if for them, a really good partnership is 3 students working on a research project for a year, we're not going to see what's best. Those that are looking for numbers, I would have to run some reports and get back to you on exact numbers. But I would say, like the Harry Chapin food banks, that sort of situation, they're looking for numbers because they can take such massive numbers. But honestly, a lot of our organizations struggle to take large numbers. We have just changed our days of service. So our WOW day of service that's coming up in August and our October day of service, a Make a Difference day. We've just changed to where you cannot participate unless you can take at least a 25 passenger bus, because we were having too many transportation issues. And as we know, rising costs. So one of our ways to keep costs down is to have a 20. That has proven difficult to even just find partners who can take a group of 25. So I don't have a great answer for you, but there's some context to maybe help you. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
I don't know if I heard or if you're saying that organizations have to take 25 students.
For either of our days of service. If you're not able to take 25 students, you wouldn't be able to be part of WOW Day of Service or Make a Difference Day. But those weekly guided trips are smaller groups. So those would be probably a really good route for you, or just simply posting it in the database, in the opportunities database, and getting students that way.
I don't know if anybody else here has the same issue, but the biggest issue that I run into is that we have to do like background screening, it's like 15 days. Doesn't matter if you're there for a day, you gotta do it. It's like, and so if a student tells me, oh, I only want to do 4 hours, it's kind of like, well, then we can't really help them because it's not like, I don't know, time efficient, I guess, to have them go do their fingerprints, which costs us money to do.
That's a really great point and a great question. So if your organization, the question is about background checks. If your organization requires background checks, you're going to have the best results if you also pay for those background checks for the students. But either way, you can set limits. We have organizations that set limits to say, unless you can agree to come and serve with us for this number of hours after you're trained. Same with training. Like some organizations, like our crisis hotlines, things like that, their trainings are long and intense, and they don't want to train somebody who's only going to come for 4 hours one time. And I totally understand that. Put that in your description when you post it. That's really fine. You're not going to get the same turnout. Like you're not going to get the same response. Like if you just post something like, hey, come this Saturday and help us plant trees, you're going to probably get 30, 40 students that respond to you over time, if that stays up for a year, who say, yeah, I want to come out, I want to come out, I want to come out. You're probably not going to get that response, but the students who do contact you are going to be much more serious and dedicated and ready to really invest. So you're looking for a deeper level relationship with students, whereas planting trees or whatever the situation might be, is going to be a bit different. Yeah, Gary.
Just to build on that, does FGCU require background checks for students in general?
No, there's no background check for average students. So it's not like you could build from that for your organization. Yeah.
How would the one-day opportunities like planting trees, how would you handle liability issues there? Like a form they can sign for that day that releases, say they hit themselves with a shovel or something.
Yeah.
Like how would you handle it?
Yeah, so the questions about liability, while they're on site serving with your organization, you do want to make sure that your organization has some sort of liability coverage and your own waiver. When we do when our office is organizing the activity, so our guided trips and our days of service, we are organizing that and often providing transportation for those larger days of service. We have them sign a release of liability for the university, but that does not cover you as an agency during those days. And so if you participate in WOW or Make a Difference Day, we do have a mandatory pre-event call with all of our partners participating. And that's one of our big things that we say on that call is make sure when they step off the bus on your site that they're all filling out those forms for you, whatever that looks like for your respective organization. We've had some organizations that are just kind of, smaller entities who say like, we haven't thought about this and we don't really know what to do about it. And it's encouraged them to kind of go back and figure that out for themselves. And then our larger organizations are used to, again, I use Harry Chapin because they take so many of our students in mass. And they have it down to a science and their liability coverage. So it really looks different for every organization. Yeah. Yeah, internships are going to be different. And so you would want to work with Ashley in the internships office for that.
Liability terms, it's usually internships, the school has their liability coverage along with the agency.
Oh, that I don't know about that aspect of internships. I don't know. Jess, do you know?
I would say still every institution and every organization is probably different in that same way too.
Great. Question.
This might be offline between you and I, but I had multiple students this summer during the summer session ask for internships. And then when I replied with what's up with meeting the need, like none of them replied. So are they asking multiple places, like the first one that replies, and maybe they go with it? But on your end, what are you guys doing to like ensure that professionally they're following up or that we're getting in touch with them and setting the expectations of what the internship would look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question is about students who reach out to you and you respond to them and then you don't hear from them again. So that regarding internships, I'll point you to the internship office because there are different internship coordinators across campus if that college requires an internship. And so they may be able to give you more insight as to what that specific college is telling the students to do. I don't know if they're telling them to reach out to multiple partners or not. For service learning, though, the same might happen. And I have heard that from partners, so I want to address that. If students contact you, either, hey, I'm part of a group from class and we need a project for the next 10 weeks, and we're interested in possibly working with your organization, or an individual student contacts you and they're just interested in, they often are reaching out to many organizations because something has spurred, usually something has spurred them that they need to find a partner quickly. So it might be an assignment for class where they're like, oh my gosh, for class by next Monday, I need a partner secured. And so they're professionally supposed to be reaching out to multiple partners. What we instruct them in class, so in our classes, when we're working with faculty, we're asking the faculty to communicate this out, is to close that loop with you, to say, hey, thanks so much. Unfortunately, I already found another partner, but maybe I can work with you again in the future. They should be doing that. I can tell you it's not just a student phenomenon. I work with faculty, I work with community partners. And the same happens sometimes. And so please don't take offense to it, but know that we are working on the back end to teach them professional communication. It can be great for you to loop me in on that, because then we can follow up with, if it's part of a class, maybe the faculty member didn't communicate correctly, or we can just help it along. Thanks. Yeah.
To piggyback on what I'm hearing back from students, it's called technology. And IT departments, filters, if they are giving us their FGCU.edu email address, they can reach us, our spam filters let them in, but they might not necessarily be getting ours back without first going into their spam or their junk folder, and they're not checking it.
Yeah, and if you do have a student who reaches out and you're like, oh, I really want to work with this student, but I'm not hearing back from them, that may be the case. And if you loop me in, we might have a way on campus. Like if I can see, oh, I know their professor, I can reach out to the professor. Hey, this partner is trying to get back in touch with the student. So we have some ways that we can try to help you in that process if it's a student you really want to reconnect with.
Personal experience with students who are on campus.
And the same is actually true in the reverse. Our K through 12 systems, their filters are really difficult. And so we have a lot of students who come to us and say, I've emailed this school 1 million times and they have not responded to me. And we find out that the school's filter is just so tight that our emails are not getting through to them.
I've actually asked students to give me their personal email address, get the college email out of the mix to try and help the situation.
Yeah.
And on my end, we're locked down like Fort Knox. Like I'm gonna be requesting that this great document, it has all the links, not be given to me with a QR code, because I can't open Google Docs. I'm not allowed. And so it can be on, our end as well.
Yeah, and we can send you the PDF of it. So you get it. I saw a hand on both sides. I feel like I saw a hand over here somewhere. Maybe. Nope. My hand's over here.
Actually, I was just gonna add to help her understand how these kids function here. What we do, we have a student from here manage this from here.
It's a great idea.
And they communicate on text. They could care less for me.
Yeah, text has really taken over the email. What used to be email is now text.
Google Voice.
Yep, Google Voice is a great way to be able to text students without. Yeah, yeah, great. Other questions or other challenges, since we're talking about challenges here, other challenges that you maybe want to know best practice around navigating?
I guess one of the ways that we've really plugged into FGCU is we call them campus chapters, but I think maybe you guys call them RSOs.
Yep.
And finding a champion either through faculty or students on campus that can be your champion for your nonprofit to form that club or RSO has been a really great way to plug in.
Yeah, so talking about building that relationship with campus, if your organization is interested in, sometimes organizations will call me and say, how can we start a student organization on campus? You actually cannot start a student organization on campus. Student organizations have to be started by students. So this is where that relationship building with students really matters, and following up with students. So you could have an all-star student who shows up just for 4 hours on a Saturday morning. It's up to you to be like, Jane, you seem like you could really take us places on campus, and talk with Jane then about, hey, we've always had a dream of a student organization on campus. Would you maybe be interested in starting that and working with other students? They have to have at least 4 students to start an organization, so that one of each officer. But beyond that, then they can do whatever. And the Habitat chapter on campus has done really well pre-COVID, and we're bringing it back. Yes, fingers crossed. Yeah.
Is there a list of student organizations available for us to target?
Yes, there is. So an easy way to get there. So I'll take you back to our homepage here. When you click on the Find Service Learning Opportunities, it's actually taking you into a separate portal that students on campus call EagleLink. So on here, there's this little it's called a hamburger. I don't know if anybody's aware, but and one of the things you can see under here is organizations. And you can browse through here. This is all public, and you can search. So anyone, anywhere in the world can see all of our organizations that are active on campus. All right. Well, great questions. We're going to take like a 5-minute break. Feel free to use the restroom, grab snacks and water. And then when we come back, Jessica Ray is going to be talking with us about digital badging and how that could be really a big thing for you and already is a big thing for our students. So 5 minutes and we'll reconvene.
I just went, I was like.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So if you want to find your seat, we'll have plenty of mix and mingle time right after Jessica's presentation. And we have lunch coming as well.
I'll be 11:45, we're wrapping up. I'm also hungry, I promise. 11, we're staying on schedule.
I did want to answer, there are two questions that we get frequently, and I forgot to mention, but they're on your agenda. One question is about donating items. So students cannot receive service learning hours for donating items, but they can receive service learning hours for the time they spent collecting and encouraging people in the neighborhood to get behind that. So if they're going house to house and they're collecting food, canned food or something like that, it's time spent. So really that's what's important to remember is if somebody spends 30 minutes on a task, they get 30 minutes toward their graduation requirement. We are a degree requirement, as I mentioned, so it's really important that we can audit the experience, and auditing the experience looks like time spent. So keep that in mind. And then the other question that we get frequently is, oh, if it's a high need opportunity, like, oh my gosh, I need 20 people this Saturday and I'm willing to give them double hours. If they work with us 4 hours, I'll give them 8 because we really need them. Well, again, it's time spent. So if they only spent 4 hours with you, they can only track 4 hours toward their graduation requirement. So those were two big questions I wanted to make sure and hit. Yeah. Drive time is not included. So that's a good question. Drive time is not included. We tell them it's similar to a job where if you have to drive an hour to work at a restaurant, that restaurant's not going to pay you for the hour that you were driving there. And so that does sometimes mean that transportation can be a challenge, but we do try to help students carpool. We're hoping to start a carpool initiative in the coming year. And then I have shared with partners in the past that if you're, especially if your agency is a bit further away from campus, you're absolutely allowed to, if you're able to provide gas cards and things like that. You cannot pay students for service learning, but certainly helping them get to you is advantageous.
So our volunteers, we do a mileage stipend. So if they deliver something for us, they do the mileage stipend and we pay them for that, because it's not them coming from their home to our office, but from our office to the job that we're having.
Using their car, their vehicle and their gas. Yeah, I don't see why not for that, because it's covering not their service, not their labor, but covering the use of their vehicle. Yeah, I think that's fine. Great. All right, I'm gonna hand it over. Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know where.
I don't either.
You want to just hold that?
No, not really. Didn't know I had to come with a pocket or something. I have to have this for the Zoom, Justin. Also, high neck, not well thought out. We should have done this while you were on your break. Can you hear me? I got this and I talk with my hands. This is not good. All right. Yeah, there's not that many. Okay, Dolly's gonna take care of that one. All right, so hello, there are some familiar faces here, but so many new faces, and I love that. So when I say familiar faces, that's because before Justin came along in 2019, I had the privilege of being the director of service learning. So my heart has been in service, and some of you I have known for years and years and years, and I love that so much. But because there's some new people here, I want to get to know a little bit about you in the audience. This is not important stuff. This is not relevant stuff, but it's just so I know. Do I have, and this is what I'm going to have you do. If you like some of the same things that I like, I want you to snap, okay? If you really like them, I want you to snap up high, okay? Are you ready? Okay. Sweets. Who likes sweets? Are you here with sweets? Are you here with? Thank you. And Lisa Page, yay, she was in charge. So we do have dessert. There's always dessert when we are doing stuff with her. Yes. Okay. And then how about this? Anybody like to work out in any way, shape, or form? That could be walking, that could be biking, that could be hiking. Okay, fantastic. All right, last one.
Who loves the Office of Service Learning? Woo! All right, fantastic, fantastic. Oh, I'm talking in it like it's, I don't even do that. All right, so today I love that I got to hear some of the questions and some of the experiences that you've already been having with our students. And one of the things that I want to focus on today is how you and your organization are co-educators with us. So I greet every incoming student, every one of them, in presentations, and I talk about all of the learning that is going to be happening outside the four walls of the classroom through service learning. And then additionally, I heard some of you talking about internships, which can happen with you as well. And then ultimately for their professional career. So I talk about the value of experiential learning, and service learning at FGCU is such a huge part of that. And you are such a huge part of that. And so one of the things we want to make sure is that we are always listening to you as our community partners, always listening to our employers so that we understand your needs and what you need from our students as well. What skills do you need? And so one of the big things that I talk about with our incoming students is that through experiential learning, they will be gaining transferable skills. And what we want to be able to do is understand what skills you need from them, and then make sure that our students are getting experience and building and strengthening these skills, have the ability to articulate to you that they possess these skills and to future employers that they possess these skills, and then also showcasing it through digital badging so that if you are looking to hire our students, that you know that they possess these skills. So two ways that this is going to be relevant to you. You will be helping our students gain these transferable skills. And then that will be advantageous to you just in case you want to be hiring our amazing students, and that you will know that they possess these transferable skills. All right, Dolly, next slide. Oh, push it down. Yeah, push the down button. Where do we aim it, Justin? Maybe. Okay, Justin's gonna push a button. Fantastic. All right, so the first thing that I want to say is the goal with this is to make sure that our students don't just know things, that they can do things, and that they are career ready. If you have been paying attention, and our new president has been on the news a lot, this is top of the list of her priorities. We want to make sure that we are equipping our students for success, and success looks like graduating and successfully either being hired or entering grad school so they are on that path to success. So this is the reason behind our micro-credentialing and digital badging initiative. So like I said, we're bringing you from our community together with employers to understand what needs you have of our students so that we are equipping them. And it's to prepare FGCU students, alumni for the future of work. All right, next slide. Oh, is it working? Justin, you can't leave. Oh, I was like, you can't leave. Okay, it's working, it's working. So I'm going to tell you this. We have 3, what we call buckets of badging. The first one, the green column, is called industry specific. Those are for employers within specific industries where we are helping our students learn more about that particular industry. They earn a digital badge, and then they have automatic jump to interview with that company because they're coming equipped and as a standout applicant because they've got that foundational information. That is happening, not part of today's conversation. The blue column is called Workforce Skills Academy. That's about upskilling and reskilling, and that is not necessarily for our students that are here. That could be for alums. That could also be for community members. If you're driving down the road and you see a huge billboard that talks about different opportunities and earning certificates and getting education through 20 free programs, that has to do with that bucket. All right, and we got a huge grant to meet the needs of our community with that. Not part of today's conversation, but just something that you should know. But this center one, where I put the red arrow pointing down, that is what we're going to be talking about today. And those are the transferable skills that I've mentioned. So when I'm meeting with first-year students and they're coming to FGCU, often right now, because this is what we do in the summer, I explain to them that transferable skills are the skills that employers and grad schools are looking for, regardless of their major. They are transferable. Every employer is looking for these skills. Every community partner is looking for these skills. Grad school admissions teams are looking for these skills. And so they are things such as teamwork, oral communication, leadership, critical thinking, and more. And to the question in the back about professionalism and following up, yes, that's actually one of the transferable skills as well. We all want our students to be professional, right? So those are also based on one of the frameworks that Justin already talked about today, which is the National Association of Colleges and Employers. Kind of a great thing to get everybody together so that we know what employers and you community partners are looking for. And we can then work to make sure that we're providing the skills that the students need for you. All right, next slide. Okay, the badges are not an extra course or requirement. They're not built into the student's major. It's not something extra that they pay for. It's not replacing anything. And it's not something online where it's like, you get a badge and I hate that. When we were first looking at this, I said, oh, this badging thing, we've got to set a high standard and we've got to have our badges mean something. And they do. I'm very proud. There was a large group of us that got together. We had a steering committee, and then we had a subcommittee just focused on this. And we said, we need to set a high bar because it isn't going to be like an Oprah edition where everybody's getting the prizes, right? We want people to go through a process and build these skills, strengthen these skills, and provide evidence that they possess these skills. So we have accomplished that. And that's what's so important is the skills when our students are going out and applying for jobs, there's nothing on a transcript that says, I took a professionalism class, right? I took a oral communication class. Well, actually public speaking, that is one. I took a blank class. I took a critical thinking class. The idea is that these skills are integrated into courses throughout their experience and not just courses. Somebody up here was talking about how great it is to partner with student organizations. Who was that? Somebody? Great. Okay. Yes. And our students are gaining these transferable skills through their involvement in student orgs. And guess what else? Through service learning, right? They are gaining these skills through service learning. So it's making them visible to you, and it's building on things that they're already doing here. And ideally, it's so that our students can be equipped, they can be the standout candidates, and they can be successful and get the dream job. All right, next slide. So Next slide. We're already teaching these and all of these things. You see the service learning highlighted there, internships as well, and in student life, which is student organizations. And like I said, they don't appear on transcripts. They don't appear as like just a listed out thing on a resume. Well, you could just say I have that, right? I am a great oral communicator. No, because you said so, right? That is what our students are doing right now. They're just putting these skills on a resume, but there's nothing backing that up. So this helps back it up. Next slide. All right, and this is just so I can say, I'm not making this stuff up, okay? Employers have been surveyed, and guess what? They want students to possess these skills. I could go down the whole list, but I'm going to be going to show you that actual list and what we are offering digital badging in. But it is those transferable skills, such as the ability to communicate, creative thinking, critical thinking, ability to work with others, etc. And so the big section right here is very important. The orange is somewhat important. And obviously, the little red part means somebody didn't think it was important, and that was very small. So yes, these skills are important. Next slide. This is what it looks like. So when I talk about a digital badge, our students, I'll take you through the process, but once they are awarded, this is what it looks like on LinkedIn. And one of the amazing things about LinkedIn is that if you put a certification, that is out there. So if there is an employer that is seeking students that possess these skills, now you possess that skill and it is identifiable, and through their algorithm, employers can find you and reach out to you and share job opportunities. So this is how it is made visible. Next slide. All right, and so the digital badging process. Now, Justin, if I want to, go ahead, next slide. If I, when it's time, and I want to click on the website, I have to physically go over there? Okay, perfect. I'm not ready yet, but almost. This looks like a lot of stuff, okay? So just watch me. This is how simple it is. This is the process that our students will go through. They identify a transferable skill that they are going to be focused on. And then they learn about that particular skill. They hear its definition. They see what criteria it is. I'm going to use teamwork as the example because that is the one that I embed into the service-based course that I teach here at FGCU. So when I introduce teamwork in my class, I am saying these are the behaviors that strong team members possess. We don't always hear that or know that, right? Like you might be like, I am a great team member. Why? I have worked on a team. Do you know what makes you a great team member? And can you articulate that? We have to start there. And then I have to provide opportunities for my students to practice being a great team member and give them the resources. Because you know what happens often is we're like, yeah, I have my students doing teamwork in class. I ask my students, have you ever learned how to be an effective team member? Has that been taught to you, or do you just get put on a team? Nope, I just worked on a team. So one of the things that I embed into my class is a proposal or a plan, and they have to do research on what effective team behavior looks like, and then they have to create those strategies. If there's team conflict, do the research. What are you going to do? If you need to motivate your team members, do the research. What are you going to do? So that they're thinking ahead of time. There's peer evaluations where we work the teamwork right into it. So you're looking for their strong teamwork behavior. They're looking for your strong teamwork behavior. So you introduce the badge, the transferable skill badge with the definition, and then they begin to practice it. This is where you come in. They are practicing through service learning. And when I go to the website and I show you what some of those transferable skills are, what I want you to do, and I'm going to give you time at your tables, is I want you to think about how you can highlight those skills when our students are with you. Because the more that they are told, you are exhibiting great teamwork skills here, then they're like, I am, right? Or did you realize when you were, maybe you were in charge of letting people in and out of an event and you had to communicate certain, you get to come in here. This is the policy of today. This is today's event, right? That's oral communication. You're building those skills through service learning. So then what our students do is they have amazing experiences with you and they collect artifacts. Their artifacts could be pictures from direct service events they've done with you, pictures, or if they did indirect, maybe they made lesson plans for your organization, not just for the lessons that they taught, but maybe for future lessons to be taught. That is evidence of strong written communication or professionalism, and that could be counted as an artifact. Things that they are doing with you count as their evidence. So what happens next is they start submitting evidence, which is artifacts, and then they have to say, through this experience, I strengthened my blank skill. These are the behaviors that I exhibited, and they do that a minimum 3 times. So it's not a one and done. Remember I said it's not you get a badge and you get a badge. They've got to show over time that they have successfully accomplished and strengthened this skill, and there's evidence to back it up, and they know what they did, and they can explain those behaviors that they possess. And then they're ready for a recorded interview. Because if they've done it and they're practicing writing about it in a reflection, then they need to be able to transition that to an interview. And then that is reviewed, and that is how they get a digital badge. And I just want to take you to the digital badge website. And if you go, Dolly, to the next slide. Yeah, perfect. Jamie, if you could click on that. Yeah. And I'm going to probably, well, if you just do it, I request, that would be fantastic, and I'll stay here. Oh, should have done this first. Start without your data. I hate when it does that, but yeah, I guess. Yeah, and then start browsing, continue and start browsing. Perfect. Okay, so we have an entire website for this. And if you scroll down, Jamie, and you go to where it has the 3 badges, the center badge, nope, keep going down, right there, boom. See how it says transferable skills? Click on that for me. Nope, go back just to the main, badge. Perfect, scroll on down. All right. I won't show you the video because guess what? It's my voice, and I already told you everything that I would tell you in that video anyways. So scroll on down a little bit more, and then you're going to see all of the different ones. See, professionalism. That is one that is very important. And then we've got career and self-development, leadership, teamwork. We've got oral communication, written communication, communication technology, data literacy. Let me tell you something cool that happens in my class, critical thinking as well. When I bring them together after they have engaged in their service learning for the semester in that class, I take them through every single one of those. I just list them off. I say to the group, I say, raise your hand if you feel like you either gained or strengthened your professionalism through your service learning this semester. Raise your hand. The whole class raises their hand. Because we start with things such as a professional email to a community partner. And they are professional, they should be professional in their communication with you. They should be professional in their dress with you. They should be professional when they are engaging at your organization with the community. So professionalism, they raise their hand. I say, raise your hand if you feel like your service learning project this semester has helped you grow and strengthen your written communication, your oral communication, your leadership. They raise their hand, they raise their hand, they raise their hand, they raise their hand. You are our co-educators. By providing these experiences for our students, I tell them all the time from the day they step on this campus, your service counts. It counts because it's impactful. It counts because it counts toward their service learning hours, but it counts towards their experience. They get to reference these experiences and identify what they've gained, including their professional development. So what I would love, hey, Jamie, remember how you said, do you want me to click on this? And I said, nope, go to the badge. But remember how it has that whole list? So if you can go back to that list, I would love the last thing that we do right now is for you all at your tables. Yeah, keep going. Nope, keep going down, keep going down. Okay, perfect. See how it says list of badges. All right. So you're going to see that list. And I want you to think about the opportunities that you provide at your organization for our students. Think about how many of those connect with the work that our students are doing with you. And then talk about what activities align with those particular skills. All right, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do that. And then I would love for you to share back because somebody else might hear an idea over here and say, oh, I didn't even think about having our students do that. We could have our students do that, right? Okay, so 2 to 3 minutes of a conversation of what types of activities that are happening at your organization are helping our students build and strengthen these particular transferable skills. You can, it's okay because the other ones don't need to show, Jamie. Oh, it's not, they can see it, but for real, because that is not going to be here. It's not.
The financial,
Yeah, it's not.
but research is.
No, because it's separate. It's just separate. It's not transferable skills.
Oh, gotcha.
So you can just show the transferable. I'm like, take them off.
I'll just put my body.
It's like you could like go back and like put them into their categories. Like, yeah.
Over in communication too.
If we just like thought about setting. What is the foundation? One is the intro to humanity.
So I'm just going to go through and have them give me one example for each and then say, thanks for being our co-educators. And then I'm gonna call you back up.
Bring it back to Justin.
All right. I would love to get your feedback because as soon as we're done, I'm having Justin come back up and he's going to tell us how we're going to organize lunch. So this is what I'd love to do. I'd love to see if we can have here at least one example for each of these. Okay. So if you were talking about at your table, professionalism, was there anybody that talked about how professionalism at their organization could be built or strengthened? Did anyone talk about that one? Yes, go ahead. Tell me your name. Tell me what organization you're with. Yes.
We have volunteers engaged with, community members, so they have to be professional. We're talking about that.
Right. They have to be not just knowledgeable, but professional because they're representing you, right? They're representing you and they're forward facing, communicating with community members. Yes. So good. And highlight that when they're with you. I love that. Talk about this is a perfect opportunity for you to strengthen your professionalism. And then say this. Have you heard about digital badging at FGCU? No lie, because I want to tell you something exciting. Remember how I told you that our president has career readiness at the top of her list? Well, we're pretty excited she's our president, and we've been building this, but now we get to really launch it, and we have a university-wide plan to really take this to the next level. So we need more students to be thinking about this all the time and then remembering their service counts, right? Okay, perfect. All right, how about career and self-development? I'm going to tell you that's any of the experiences that they have with you, okay? Because they are developing personally, but they are also developing professionally. And we are always trying to get them to see the connections between what they're doing with you and their future career success. How about leadership? Maybe even an example of something that students have done with you could be leadership or opportunities that you could create for students. Did any of you talk about leadership? Go ahead, Ross.
I'm from Future Forestry. I had a student that came to our events and was planting trees and moving mulch and doing the normal stuff. And we were talking about doing a survey of trees we planted in the past. And this kid was listening, and he said, I'll help. He was a high schooler. He was a sophomore.
Wow.
And I had 3 FGCU students that I had lined up from before. We got on the Zoom call. About halfway through, I was explaining how it was supposed to go together and all what we were doing. And he took over. And he said, let me get your guys' information. I'll start working on the schedule. And he did that. And then he set all the dates for when they were going to work and figured out from the other students when they were available.
He put our FGCU students to shame, is what he did.
So 3 years later,
yeah,
he's at the Air Force Academy.
Wow, very, very
I didn't
cool.
know he picked me. This was his plan from the beginning. He knew he had to do something. So he did our first annual survey.
Wow. So, and I love though that you then said, yes, take the lead. And that's fantastic. And there are certain things that I hope that you could, if you have the right person, that you would allow to be delegated to our students, because this is what I want to tell you. They're not all going to do that, but we've got some amazing students. I mean, that just show up like that and take the lead. And the more opportunity they have to do that with you, then they can build on that and build on that. Yes. And it might, if they stay with you, they're building on that with you. And that's outstanding. All right. What about teamwork? Anybody? Did you guys talk about teamwork? Yes. David.
Good morning, everyone. So again, United Way, but on the community partnership scale side, during the transition of Franklin Park Elementary, some of you may or may not know, we were once in a brick and mortar, but we have recently transferred to a portable campus, and so the new school was built, which we should walk into it in August of the upcoming school year. Speaking to the teamwork component, the gentleman, Ishmael, came with other FGCU volunteers to help with packing up that campus. It was mayhem around. Ishmael walked into the media center and met with his team, and I'm just looking because I'm like, well, let me grab the boxes and put supplies out so they can start to move in whatever direction. By the time I turned around, Ishmael had these 3 people lining you on over boxes and this, you're gonna get these books, you're gonna load it on a cart. I'm like, wow. I really need to be here. And that was a great thing where we can look at the volunteers and the interns of FGCU and identify these leadership-based roles and characteristics in them. So I cannot tout Ishmael and that team enough. It was a great experience.
And I love, okay, so this is perfect that was an example of leadership, but also of working with others effectively. So this is what we tell our students. You could submit one experience and highlight how it helped you grow as a leader, as well as how it helped you grow as a team member. Just you build on it, and then you have additional teamwork experiences. You build on that, you have additional leadership experiences. Yes, perfect. How about oral communication? Do you have opportunity? I've got a hand up already. Go ahead. And it's Florida Cancer Specialists?
Florida Cancer Specialists Foundation.
Okay, foundation, great, perfect.
Our main volunteer role is patient support volunteers in infusion.
Okay.
At our clinics. And so oral communication, FGCU student or adult needs to know how to communicate with patients with cancer.
Yeah.
That if they're having an off day and they snap at you and all you've done is said, say hi, that it's not you. How to read the body language, how to, read the room, so to speak, what to say, what not to say, that it's okay to not say anything. Definitely oral communication.
Perfect, because sometimes our students would only think of oral communication as a public speaking class. No, you're talking about nonverbals. You're talking about listening. You're talking about being present in that moment to meet the needs of that patient. So important. Would you please make sure all of our FGCU students recognize that that is strengthening their oral communication skill, and say, do you know there's a digital badge for that? And a website. Just send everybody to the web. Just say, you don't know about it? Go on to FGCU's website, type in digital badge, and it'll take you to this website. That's all we need you to do. All right, what about written communication? What about written? Do you have opportunities for them to do written communication? Anybody? Yeah, go ahead. Tell us tell everybody what organization.
Susie Hassett, Environmental Education with County Schools. I had some students in a group last summer who helped create some QR codes and photos of the animals in our fish tanks.
That was my team.
That was so cute. So they were on this key. Luckily, I took half of them with me to the school district because the ones that were lower here no more. The ones in the school district still survive and still point people to more information about the things you see in the fish tank. Fantastic. I love something for them.
And that was in a 6-week class, a 6-week summer class. Awesome. And then what about critical thinking? Yeah, Cornell's like, I have got this. What?
So with at ES, we have created a critical thinking program, and we have students from here that go into some of the after school programs, work with the kids with us, especially one of the young men from here, Abraham, that actually take them to the night. And I'll throw something at all you guys, and any one of you guys figure it out, you can raise your hand later or something and tell me if you know the answer. But a part of what critical thinking look like when we go into a school, we'll say to the kids, if I give you 2 jugs, each jug have no markers on it, but one is an 8-liter jug and one's a 3-liter jug. I need you to bring me back 4 liters of water in the 8-liter jug. Without trying to take a guess on what that could look like, there's steps to it. What would those steps look like? How could you bring me back 4 liters of water? And it requires you to think critically on what that could look like. And we have hundreds of those scenarios. And I know you guys are probably mind-boggling a little bit, right?
I'm like,
How could we accomplish 4 liters of water in an 8-liter jug that does not have a marker on it? But these are the words, when I tell you, it's amazing.
and can I tell you, each and every one of you in here does critical thinking all day, every day. You are in the role you are in because there is some issue that you are working on in this community to make better and to bring about positive change. And how you go about doing that every day requires critical thinking. Share your own experiences. Talk them through, like, here's our situation. These are our options. How do we choose the best option? Let's bring them into the process with you. And then I'm going to highlight communication technology. If you are on Zoom, Karen Canetta was one of our community partners, and she was brainstorming when Justin was talking earlier, but it was a perfect example. And I was like, I'm going to highlight what she said because you guys didn't get to see it. So she is from Collier County Museums. And so she had the communication technology is essentially presentations, PowerPoint, right? Our students pretty doggone good at that. All right. And if you're not, tap into our students and they can help with PowerPoint presentations. That's not just oral communication, but actually putting the presentation together. And so she talked about one of the projects that she's had students do in the past is presenting historical data or information out at the museum. So that was a perfect example. And then data literacy, if you are needing research on anything, and that was the community-based research piece, collecting data, analyzing data, doing research, checking sources, getting information, tap into our students for that. All right, so your job, help our students recognize all of the transferable skills that they're gaining, help them know that there are digital badges that they could earn so that others can know that they possess these skills as well. Just search digital badging on the FGCU homepage. Woo-hoo! All right. I'm going to have Justin come back up. And anything else from me? No? All right, perfect. Hey, it's going to be mix and mingle time. So if you have any thoughts or you want to talk to me or ask me questions about digital badging, I will talk about digital badging all day long. Okay, I really will. Kind of believe in this. Kind of am pretty excited about this. So Justin. Oh, you're welcome.
All right, so you're all digital badge experts now, and you can help our students do that really well. This thing is unique. Okay. Two quick notes before we do some round the room introductions. I wanted to make sure that I mentioned heavy communication times. There's a bullet point on the agenda for that. I just wanted to mention that. So if you're a new partner, it is important to know that students' responsibility is to reach out to you to set things up with you. Their responsibility to track the hours. There's one big responsibility that you have logistically, and that is to verify their hours in the system. So everything is electronic, nothing is hard copy or paper form. However, you will get 2 emails when a student works with you. The first email says, Joe Smith is planning to work with your organization. At this time, you do not need to do anything. Email literally says that. Once they track their hours, so hopefully at the end of their experience with you, but at least once a semester. So if they're working with you multiple semesters, we tell them to track at the end of each semester. But once they track their hours in the system, you will get a second email that says, Joe Smith says he did 30 hours with you. Is this correct? You click the link and click yes or no. Again, no username, no login. You click yes or no. It's based on your email. Sometimes a student comes to us and says, my partner has not responded and I need these hours to show up in the system for graduation. One of 2 things may be the case. Either you're totally overwhelmed with email and you missed the email, in which case we encourage the student to call you and say, please find that email and click it. The other thing is sometimes they enter your email address incorrectly, in which case you will never receive it. And so we work with them on our end to try to fix that. But your biggest responsibility in that case is to just click yes if it's accurate, or no, and input in the comment box what the accurate number of hours are. So that's a really, really big note to keep in mind. The heavy times of the year when that happens is the beginning of a semester, because they may be tracking. So beginning of a spring semester in January, they're supposed to be tracking all the hours they may have done over winter break while they were home or not in class. Same with summer. We'll encourage them to track a lot of hours in end of August, early September. And so you'll get emails every time they track hours. The other heavy time is the end of the semester, when if they were working in a class and they were tracking hours, they need to track that before they go. And Lisa helps with a ton of that, and I see her hand up. So Lisa, go for it.
So two things. Some of you may have spam filters, and sometimes our people service network at FGC emails do not get through. If you know you've got a really strong spam filter, you might want to see if you have maybe an alternate email that you can have the student list, or you can email the service planning office directly with the student's name and try to connect that way so you can get those hours verified. And the second thing, I know, Justice, if it's a yes and you know the student did 25 hours, 2 point whatever hours, and you click yes, awesome. If it's a no, can you please put some kind of instruction for the student? A lot of supervisors, they just click no, and then the students don't know why. So at least if you say, no, you didn't do 30 hours, you did 40 hours, or you didn't do 30 hours, you did 3 hours, or something, along with your name and some contact information, so that the student can then reach back to you, because they may say, yes, I did do 30 hours, and you may not have an idea that you did, because they might have been working with a different supervisor. And then, so that gives you some context, some nuance in which to work with, and it gives the students an opportunity to correct a no into a yes. Now, unfortunately, if it is a no and you speak to the student and you need to correct it, I don't think at this point I can resend the email, but you can email me, call me, track me down. My cell phone number is on the bottom, my email address, if you just really got to grab my attention and just tell me, Sally Sue really did 30 hours, can you change that no to a yes? Because that's what I was, all right?
If you don't click yes, it never shows up toward their graduation requirement. So we'll be hunting down someone at your organization. And by we'll be doing that, I mean Lisa will be doing that. Yes, the royal we. So that was one point. The other point is I just wanted to emphasize to please submit. I mentioned that form and I showed you, where you can submit all your opportunities for students. Please submit for August, September, October now, because students are coming on campus very soon. They are looking in there, and you don't want your opportunities missed. Don't wait till middle of September and they will have already picked all their projects for their class-based projects. At that point, you will have missed the boat. So get your fall needs in there now so that you're exposed to all of the classes. And many of the classes do bring up the database in class and look right then. And often that's the first, second week of class in August. August 14th is our first day of class. So you want to get in there before then. All right. The last thing before we do some introductions around the room is I've mentioned Jamie Wilson a lot and told you that she's a faculty member herself, and then she works on behalf of our office to help connect your needs to assignments in classes with faculty. And so Jamie is back there. I would encourage you all to meet Jamie before you leave today, because if you want to integrate in any of those classes, I'm probably going to be connecting you with her anyway, so it's good for you to have some face time with her. So we're going to do real quick, like 20 seconds or less, around the room of name and organization. You don't need to go into like what your 4 goals are for the fall or anything like that. Just real quick name and organization. But I want everyone to listen for organizations that you want to connect with. When we put out our survey after these workshops, one of the biggest things that people always are thankful for is this mix and mingle hour. We've got an hour here where there's food in the back and drinks and snacks, where they got to connect with other organizations and build some relationships there. So if you're on Zoom, I'm actually going to be turning the mic off for the rest of the time, so feel free to drop off or stay on if you want. And for everyone here, I'm just going to go through the tables, name and your organization, and then we'll just go through and then be looking out for who you want to connect with as we go. All right, so everyone on Zoom, thanks for being here. We love you. Bye.